Good evening, everybody, and welcome aboard to Outworld Broadcasting's coverage of the 2023 ASR Supercars Championship. It is back with a much long-awaited debut round here for the sixth season of ASR Supercars. We're back to something a little bit different, Calder Park in all its glory. We've been here twice before, but never as the opening round of a championship. First time we were here, it didn't look anything like this. It was as plain as the looks of the pimples on my face. And the last time out we were here, it was retro round, and that's the way the circuit looks right now. It's taking Calder Park as if it was what we thought it should look like if it was still serving supercars today and putting modern supercars around it. And as I welcome Benjamin Rhodey Rhodes to the microphone for the first time this year. Rhodey, this is shaping up to potentially be one of the closest championships we've had in some years, not just for the top spots, but right up and down the field.
Absolutely, Nether. Good evening, everybody, and I am also very keen to be back for Supercars action in 2023. And yeah, looking at the times that we've had in the server, but also just getting the lineup this year. The top end of the pace bracket comes down a little bit, and a lot of the guys in between have improved quite a bit, and we've ended up with a grid where, at least tonight, they're all within about a second of each other on the timing tree, or give or take, which granted Calder does play to that nature with a very short, fairly simple layout, but I think for the season we're going to see 5 cars competing for wins, 10 cars aiming for the podium, 15 cars potentially going for a top 10. It's going to be one of those sorts of seasons. So there's going to be a lot of action on track, and there's plenty of points out there available for everyone to have a crack at.
Absolutely right. And throw into the mix the wild cards, the Super 2 debutants that are coming up through the ranks as well. We're going to put their stamp on this year's championship as well. And let me tell you now, ladies and gentlemen, there is some very quick peddlers in development series this year, and they're all itching to get their hands on a main game seat. 3 of them have managed to do it this round so far, and let's just see how far they can get. That will be a very, very interesting prospect to look forward to over the coming weeks and months as the championship progresses on. Right, it's a bit different this year. The championship has a different looking calendar, 13 rounds, and not only 13 rounds, but for the very first time, it includes Enduro Cup. So that's a new dynamic that a lot of drivers are going to have to get used to this year, is who are they going to pair themselves with to give themselves a maximum opportunity to not only take out Enduro Cup, but also to bank maximum points for the championship.
Exactly, and Enduro Cup and entries in general, especially in the teams title player, have a lot more value now. With teams having to look at, even if they bring, for example, tonight, although they're not all here, for the start of the season at least, Pixel, what we know as Pixel, is bringing 4 cars to the table. For a supercar season, that's fine. They've got 4 drivers, but if they want to fill all 4 of those cars for the Enduro, they need to find themselves an extra 4 drivers, total of 8 drivers to run with, and every team is in that position, and there isn't, what are we looking at? Probably 46 supercars or Enduro Cup, at least, pace drivers out there in ASR. So some teams might go a little slim in points. I know some teams that maybe aren't focusing on the team's title with that individual entry will probably pluck entries from that car to fill up the rest of their slots. But it also brings in a classic dynamic that you saw way back in, I suppose, what some would consider to be the golden era of supercars, where you had both A drivers from a team pairing up. So, for example, they have already registered for Enduro Cup. It's ages out. You don't start thinking about it for probably a couple more months. But Lewis Wedding and Brennan Ross already confirmed to share the same car for Enduro Cup as the 2 lead drivers for Pixel Sim Sports in the regular season. So that brings up their 2 drivers into the second of their main entry cars. But yeah, it brings that back that dynamic of having 2 A drivers again. And there are a lot of A pace drivers in this field, as we're going to see tonight on the times. So we're going to see how some of that shuffles around and where some drivers go for the Enduro Cup as well.
Yeah, you're right. And of course, to fill out the rest of the cars, they're going to have to start looking in the development series pool, because there is not going to be the opportunity this year for what we call the blow-ins, the people that just come along and want to do Enduro Cup. No. that's out this year. So you've got to find drivers and you've got to find them in the right spots, and they've got to do a certain portion of, development series and the supercars season to really have that seat time to, be familiar with what the tracks are like, be familiar with setup, and really get yourself in the best position possible to attack that part of the series. But speaking of the series, we did this last year and it was very, very popular, so we've done it again this year. Testing this year took place at Phillip Island, and we sent our reporters down there to get all the goss, and we came up with this little promo for the teams for this year. So have a look at who's set to contest this year's 2023 Supercars Championship. The 2023 ASR Supercars season, sponsored by CRE Electrical and Beyond Electrical, sees the sixth and last time that Holden will be represented on the grid. With Ford and Chevrolet to feature on the grid in years to come, here's what the last Aussie-influenced grid will look like for this year's Supercars Championship. After losing both their major sponsors and the Teams Championship at the back end of 2022, the boys from Pixel looked set to have a rocky 2023. But with Holden leaving the physical realm, the official factory team moniker has become digital, and with the pair winning the Enduro Cup title in 2022, these two are back on the red team and back for revenge. With design elements and sponsors plucked from the Holden Racing Team history books, the 88 and 888 are certainly presenting themselves to be the real deal this season. And in a throwback to the days of a loose SimSport 4-car effort in 2020, an additional 2 cars are being prepared for the former AAR pairing in Hans Brunswick and Lachlan Burke. The perennial Enduro Cup bridesmaids were a pair with an uncertain future last year, but they've proven themselves as a quick pairing, and switching from a former Mustang factory team to the ZB factory team for 2023 with major backing from Fuchs. After a lean showing in 2022 for their 5th season of competition, PBF returned for 2023 as a fully fledged 4-car team again. Leading the charge for ASR's oldest team is newcomer Zach Brown, who brings a head of steam after a strong showing in the 2022 Development Series, which netted him his first win in a supercar and 9 podiums in the last 13 races. Alongside him is stalwart Brenton Foley, who bounced back from his lowest championship finish in 21 to finish 5th last year. PBF Race Engineering has received backing from Red Bull and Super Cheap Auto this time around the sun, and a pair of dark blue cars should find their way into some strong results this year. The second PBF team sees the return of some of the big names in the championship, and also sees Phil Boak returning to the team he co-founded. The old dog is back on the grid and is ready to show off some new tricks after an extended hiatus with the birth of his second child. Joining him at PBF Motorsport this year is Peter Savage, who took a year off after helping CRE Race Engineering to their 2021 Teams title. But Pete's got some new fire in his belly, and while we might not see the 2 HRT-inspired cars at every round this season, when we do see them, they'll be mixing it up. With founding father Scott Stancliffe in the spectator stands this year, new backing, and a larger Australian component in the team, Beyond Racing is the new name for what was known as Kiwi Sim Sports. Their 2 Commodores for 2023 are appropriately being run by their 2 young guns, with 2022 Dev Series almost champ Nathan Higginson and Bailey Hall, who happens to be ASR's only driver to have driven in all 3 classes of a supercar in a 12-month span. The 00 is trying to be a Subaru, complete with gold rims, and the 38 is the visual inverse, with a black base and red chrome trim. These 2 are the breakaway pair with the rest of the team in Mustangs, so it'll be interesting to see how they compete against their 2-door brethren. The rest of the Commodores come with support from CRE Race Engineering, who are celebrating their 5th year in the league by throwing open the doors to the workshop and enlarging their support pool. Starting with the first factory effort, Cam Rutledge is joined by his 2022 Enduro Cup teammate Daniel Cox in what becomes a full season entry under the CRE Anson Motorsport banner.
with both aiming for PBs this year. Cam's 015 returns to a ZB that sat on the sidelines last year, with Cox's 94 coming from their enduro efforts, both in another of DCD's sharp designs, with backing from CRE and Envoy Super. Cam's 2022 teammate Steve Burko moves across to CRE Performance Racing for 2023, joining his Enduro Cup teammate in Dane Liccardo. The two ZB Commodores will be cloaked in the backing of Builders Traffic Management and Always Tiling, in two equally sharp designs by Liccardo Designs and 76 Graphics. Both drivers are chasing genuine podiums this year, and based on their backing, they shouldn't have any issues dealing with the other cars on their way there. The last Commodore belongs to the sole privateer on the grid this season. Team owner Ben Hall is behind the wheel, and with backing from McDonald's and Bunnings, he's got breakfast and lunch sorted. It'll be 3 for 3 and winner winner chicken dinner if the number 21 can achieve its goal of a podium this year. While the big news this year is that it's Holden's last at the top of the pile in ASR Supercars, it's also the last season at the top for the ASR developed Gen 2 Ford Mustang. Tim Redmond and Peter Thrower lead Beyond's Ford efforts, with tributes to one of Ford's fallen heroes included in their designs. Some space was found amongst the silver, black and blue of the number 56 to include a quote to Ken Block, while the number 43 has become the Huda Kiwi for this year's season. Tim's chasing that elusive first race win this season, with Pete looking for top 10s, and combined they should feature strongly in 2023. The other two Kiwi horsemen are Kane Gray and Cheese, who line up this year in the Team Tunifer division, reviving their pairing from the 2021 Enduro Cup. They sport a pair of black Mustangs with white and reflective gold highlights on the 747 and 420 respectively. They're also both rocking the Silver Fern this year and will be tapping into their inner tower in their aim for top 10s. CRE's lead cars have stuck with their Mustangs that they used in the defection to the Blue Team in 2022 and entered this season as the defenders of a three-peat in the team's championship. Celebrating 5 years since Cam Rutledge and Will Devonish put pen to paper to form what was initially a two-car team, the number 15 and 51 rock a design that pays homage to the 2019 ZB Commodores, but switch out the chrome for gloss black. Curtis Egmanis is chasing an unassisted podium this season, while Will's goal is to take home the big gong at season's end after several frustrating seasons on the second and third steps of the rostrum. Finally, 2023 sees Super 2 team Locky Lock Motorsports move up to Supercars to act as the underpinning for the new amped up racing by CRE. They're utilising the two 2022 CRE Motorsport chassis belonging to Steve Burko, with backing from 5 Active Energy taking prime position on the 26 and 237. They're piloted by some of last year's fastest Super 2 drivers in Noah Turra and champion Lachlan Locke respectively, and they are both chasing regular visits to the top end of the field this year. 2023 is shaping up to produce some of the tightest racing we've seen in the Supercars Championship, and also leave plenty of room for the Development Series hopefuls to earn wildcard opportunities to make their mark on the championship as well. As we begin the journey to farewell the current iteration of second generation Supercars, we'll head back to Central Commentary.
Well, there you have it. That is the registered field of entrants for the 2023 Supercars Championship. Save for the wildcard entries, which of course will be in and out throughout the duration of the season. Roddy, there's plenty of good liveries in that. Have you settled on a favourite one just yet, or are you still trying to pick your way through that one? Now, this is a contentious topic because there's a lot of people that obviously tuned into the Lewis Wedding roast and looked at all the liveries and what he had to say about them. And I mean, some things people disagree with, and some people they look at it and go, yeah, okay, I'll let you have that one. What have you come up with?
I've got to get this out of the way first because it's clear, obvious bias, but I am quite a fan of the work that Foley's put together for the cars that he and Zach Brown will be running this year. Obviously, Brapp is in the second car tonight. But no, he's done a really good job, sort of an evolution of last year's design. leaning in more into that sort of Red Bull sort of testing concept rather than the season cars, which is a chance for Red Bull themselves to actually explore a little bit, or Red Bull F1 to explore what it's possible with the branding, which looks a little better than just the typical blue, yellow, and red. So I'm quite a fan of that car. But there's a lot of really good cars out there in the grid. Like I might be a contentious opinion, but I am quite a fan of the split livery that Dostal, 76 Graphics, Brandon Dostal painted for Ben Hall to run as a privateer this year. I can see the argument that it would probably look better split across 2 different cars, but at the same time, as a split livery, it works, and it's really hard to get a split livery that actually works. And to me, that one works. So I think there's a really good job done there. I like what Termo's done for him and Will. There's a little bits of that car that maybe could be a little bit better. I can see, again, some of the arguments that Lewis made with that car. But the choice to go back and actually reference their very first CRE team entries, this was back when it was Will Devonish and Cam Rutledge in the Pro and Pro-Am entries in the ZB Commodores in 2019. To go back and reference that as they're now starting their 5th year as a team is pretty cool. But I think generally the grid's a very well represented grid. You've got a lot of guys that are painting that we already know do some great quality work. So you've had I know we've had Tim Redmond paint some of the Kiwi cars, or they're not Kiwi though this year, they're Beyond cars, but I keep calling them Kiwi cars because the drivers are from the land of the Kiwi. We've had obviously Nathan Higginson dip into a couple of cars for him and Bailey Hall, Lockie Lock, Daniel Cox, Termo, as I mentioned, and Brandon Dostal's also done some work for what CRE put together. Foley and Phil Boak have done the PBF entries, and Lewis Wedding has put together, I'd say, a good amount of the work, probably with some assistance from the rest of the team, but put together, I think, the bulk of the work in preparing the cars for the Pixel entries, or the real Holden Racing team. It's a really well presented grid this year. Very different styles of design. Some sort of simpler end of the scale. I'm looking more at the Beyond Racing Young Gun cars. There's maybe 4 or 5 different sponsors on those cars, but they're laid out in a way that they don't look like they're under-sponsored significantly. And then you've got the other end of the scale with some of the Lockie Lock cars. I forget their team name, but it's they're running the 5 Active Energy backing this year. Amped Up Racing.
Yeah, the Amped Up Racing cars.
Yeah.
I mean, they stand out. Like I like the look. I like the color scheme on those cars, just because the colors are just so bright and outlandish. They're not something you see on a supercar, so they really do reach out and grab your attention. So I really do like those ones. I like the Pixel, was the Pixel team, the real Pixel Holden Racing team cars now. The red, white, and blue. It's very simple, but it's very, very authentic. And I mean, it's patriotism. It's hard to go past red, white, and blue being the Australian colours. I mean, a lot of people say it's American, but yes, it is the Australian flag colours. I mean, if you do a dinky dye Aussie, it's green and gold, but we'll gloss over that. But for me, the liveries that actually stood out and grabbed me the most were the entries of Snipes, or Cane Grey, and Cheese, the 2 Mustangs for Team Tanifer. The side in particular on those cars with the fern on the rear, but how they did the sponsors on the doors with the sort of like little triangular injection coming off the front fender, and sort of having a sponsor sort of ingrained in there, and then having another one sort of on top that sort of bled into the rest of the car. It's not something you see every day, and I actually thought it was very, very tasteful and very, very well done, especially with the rest of the highlights that were on that car. The only bit that I sort of didn't quite get a handle on completely was the 2 little logos either side of the corners on the rear fender, or rear bumper rather. But apart from that, they struck me as just some beautifully simple cars, but something that was just a little bit new that you didn't see every day.
Yeah, I remember the rear sponsor, and it won't maybe come up. I'm not going to catch it from a broadcast angle, just with where it's tucked in. But it's Tui, which is a Kiwi brand. It's really on the car because there is a catchphrase to the car, or to the brand. I forget what it is. If any of the Kiwis are in the live chat, I think Timmy Redmond's actually currently out of tonight, but he might still be floating around. But he might be able to mention, because I think Timmy put some work into that car. But yeah, there's with the Kiwi cars, there's all these cool little references to stuff that I suppose only the Kiwis will get, which is kind of cool because it's bringing sort of some of their flavour into what is otherwise a very sort of Australian series, but as much as we see IRL, to be fair, where maybe not as to the same degree because they don't have money from say the New Zealand Tourism Commission or something like that to really promote their home country. But you do get some of the Kiwi drivers in supercars, like I know Andre Heimgartner's, I think, put a Fernie's helmet this year. A couple other guys obviously play into some Kiwi stuff as well. No, there's done a really good job putting those cars together, and yeah, it's a really well presented grid the whole time around, which is really good work from all the guys painting the cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Every year we tend to say that the livery standard continues to go up and up and up, and I mean this year's no exception. I mean, I don't know where the point of plateauing out actually happens to be, Rhodey. That's the scary part. Every time we think, we've reached the livery peak, and it can't possibly get any better than this, we're proven wrong. Every time we're proven wrong. And it's not just in this field, it's in the development series field as well. So well done, everybody, I must say. Right, now, all about having a look at this track, because we've only been here a couple of times before. We've been here, the first time was in 2020, when we had the very first time we went here, and a lot of people remember the look and feel of that track. It was actually very, very plain and very much like Calder Park is today, just like a barren wasteland. The visuals that you're seeing right now of Calder Park in AMS is actually something we did last year with the main game, where we had retro rounds. So we had the old school liveries on the new school cars, but then we upgraded Calder Park into such a way that as if we would have kept it going as if it was still a real life venue serving regular racing, which is actually not too far from the truth, hopefully a bit later this year, but we'll see how that pans out. So this is the same track that we've ran in 2022, and it's the same track we're taking a look at right now here with thanks to Google Earth Studio as we hone in on the southern state of Victoria. And you'll note that this place, it's been around for so many years, it's hard to remember that it actually still exists. It's just a stone's throw to the northwest of Melbourne in the suburb of Calder Park, and it's on the actual Calder Freeway heading towards Bendigo. So if you're a little bit lucky and you're standing on the hill, you'll actually see the planes taking off from Melbourne Airport just off to the east. But tonight, we're worried about the racing. 2 lots of 40-lap races, so 90 k's the distance, 2.28 kilometres. There's 9 turns. I mean, sometimes we count 10 because there is a very, very difficult to pick straight in between the last 2 turns, but you're constantly turning, so I count it as 1, so therefore it's 9. Qualifying lap record, Rhodey, looks like it might be set to fall tonight.
Yeah, with some of the pace we're seeing tonight, Ryan Cox was sitting at the top for quite a long time as one of the wild cards, but order has restored to, I suppose, normality. Will Devonish up to the top again. But yeah, the record was a 55.735 that was set by Luke Rosella the last time we were here in 2021, and currently the fastest time in the server is a 55.634, which is by Will Devonish, but we would have 2 cars go under that record, with Ryan Cox's best currently at 55.681. So, and to be fair, there are some drivers out there, we've seen this every year, there are plenty of drivers out there who will set pace in a practice session, but will hold on another 10th or 2 until they get to the race session. Obviously, Luke Rosella, with the record last year, being one of those drivers, or in that sort of group of drivers that don't give it all away until they absolutely have to. And I think even tonight, we might see some guys potentially not give too much away in qualifying. They might still save a little bit if things go their way for the shootout.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's I think there's a few people that have still got maybe a 10th or 2 in their pockets. I'm just trying to pick who those people might be, because you saw there that the 55.7 is the qualifying record, but the fastest time that we've seen so far in open practice is actually Will Devonish's 55.634, and then Ryan Cox, who's filling in for Ben Hall tonight, is on a 55.681, so very, very tight at the top. A lot of laps logged as well. I'm looking to see who's churned the least amount of laps at the moment. It's actually Leonard Grosser with 16 as one of the wild cards, but in terms of the full-time drivers, just in the 2-hour practice session alone, it's Lewis Wedding with 35 who's got the least amount of laps, and the most amount of laps I'm seeing 72 from Noah Turra. So he's almost done 2 full race distances in the 2-hour practice allotment.
Yeah, and to be fair, we saw this with some of the drivers that we were promoting, especially the drivers that were sort of force promoted this year from Super 2 into Supercars, that, you know, some of them, especially now having a season or I suppose a season where they could just commit 2 Supercars, whereas last year I think Tara did a couple of guest drives here and there, Bailey Hall as well, and obviously Nathan Ingenson now up here full time. He can commit fully to Supercars, as can Lockie Lock. Yeah, we're starting to see some good pace coming out of these guys, and we see a lot of practice time put in from Noah Tara as well. And we saw this last year. He came in at the back end of the Dev Series last year, or he was in for the entire season, but he sort of had the first half of the year off, came in for the second half, and I think in 9 races took 8 wins or something like that. So it was pretty obvious to us once he actually came in and cracked on some pace that he was going to be a strong contender. And it's perhaps no surprise that he's been snapped up by one of CRE's customer teams this year to sort of fill out their rosters. And the other thing I will say just quickly before we enter qualifying, we'll talk about it throughout the year, but CRE and Beyond Electrical have come together and have decided to put a competition together between their 6 best drivers. Each team nominated their 6 best, and the best performing team for the year will buy the other one a 6-pack.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a carton of piss riding on this, isn't there?
Exactly, there is. Yeah, so we'll be keeping track of that, and we'll be announcing for obviously the winning / losing team where the bill will be going at the end of the season. But that's another little point scale to keep a track of outside of the drivers and the teams.
Yep, absolutely right. So drivers, teams, and an inter-team trash talking battle, I think, is probably what we're calling that, isn't it? The electricians' trash talking battle. We're going to have to keep an eye on that throughout the year. Qualifying about to get underway here, ladies and gentlemen. Just having a look at the practice times. 1.2 seconds separates first to 20th in the practice time. So there's a few drivers down the bottom with a little bit of work to do. We only got 20 drivers here this weekend. There are a couple of notable absentees and some substitutes. We'll get into those throughout the course of the night. Right now we are set and waiting just for things to get underway here. And it looks like we're not too far away from getting cars out on track for 10 minutes of qualifying. So you can't afford to muck around, Rhodey. This is the important thing. You cannot afford to muck around in this qualifying session. You've got to get out. You've got to get laps on the board because you haven't got much time.
The issue isn't even so much actually the time so much. I've seen teams mentioning strategies for how they're going to run it, 3-lap stint, 4-lap stint, maybe even 2-lap stints in qualifying. The issue is going to be getting clear track, or inversely, getting in behind your teammate with some clear track, because I feel like Slipstream and having a teammate to work with could play a little bit into gaining an extra 10th or so around here for a qualifying lap, but definitely finding a gap to work with as we're having probably at least 15 of the 20 cars all heading out at the commencement of qualifying.
Oh yeah, it's a massive lash up heading out of pit lane. It's like a freight train just rolling on out of pit lane towards turn 1. We get some comments in the live chat. Good to have a lot of people along board for the ride here. We've got plenty of the development series drivers tuning in. Good to see you guys along. Jesse Bennett actually wrote, he's come along and said that should be a carton of booze to each driver on the losing team, so potentially raising the stakes a little bit more. So one can of alcohol is not good enough.
Well, I think, I don't know, it's almost suggesting if it's a carton for each driver on the losing team, he's suggesting that, the winners get a beer for doing well, but the losers get a full carton to drown their sorrows with.
Oh yeah, I guess that could be, you could look at it from that point of view, couldn't you? Oh, well.
But yeah, we've now got guys coming around to start their lap, and it's a CRE train with the first 5 cars all under the CRE banner.
And leading out Will Devonish, what a surprise there. So actually I'm a little bit surprised that he's the one leading out. I would have thought he would have snuck in behind a couple of people here and wanted a couple of tenths in the tow, but he's deciding to lead the field. Turbo's actually going for a pass, and he's overshot. So you have to note he's overshot there on Daniel Cox. That did not work out the way that they wanted it to at CRE. So the effect of the tow, I think, is very much being mitigated here by a roadblock in the form of Daniel Cox.
Yeah, Cox was the only CRE driver not in the top 10 when I last compared the drivers out there. So they're probably just trying to tuck him in with some of the quick drivers, help him pick up some lines here and there. But everyone else from CRE was in the 10 with a few minutes left to go before the briefing. So, yeah, expect to see them perform pretty well. But yeah, just trying to get some pace out of Cox, which we've seen for Cox in the Enduro Cup last year. Maybe just Calder or maybe a bit of time out of the seat. He's just taking a bit of time to get back into things again. But Will Devonish to the top with a 56.041, 3/10 to the best of the second place driver, which is currently Dane Liccardo.
Yes, so 56s is the opening salvo of business here. Now, importantly, drivers need to be positioning themselves for a top 10 here, because there is a top 10 shootout for race number 1's grid this evening. And then it's progressive grid format from the positions in race number 1 into the starting grid for race 2. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. There's a little bit still to play out in qualifying here tonight. NZ Snops pops himself up into 7th place quite nicely. Only man who's not on track at the moment, Rhodey, or was not on track until a few seconds ago, was Lewis Wedding.
Yeah, so you know, we've known the Pixel guys last year for maybe taking the relaxed format to qualifying. Just, you know, they don't have to be there with the rush of guys, getting their own little bit of track to work with. And perhaps that'll work out for them, perhaps not. We have seen in practice times that they've assumed, I suppose, the pace that they wanted to or thought they'd be achieving last year, being sort of at the back end of the field. That said, Ross currently sitting 10th, who is just off the back of Snipes pace-wise. And obviously see Lewis put some time as well. We've just seen as well Leonard Grossel. Actually, he's put in a time, but he's just improved that time. And then he's been demoted again. And this is the cluster of trying to catch the cars with them all in a pack like this, and all in a very short layout. By the time you've noticed a car has moved up position, somebody else will then pass them and shuffle them back down 2 spots. But Leonard Grossel currently 11th, so he's just on the edge of that top 10.
There he goes, Lewis Wedding starting a flying lap, so his first flying lap here. A couple of wildcards doing fairly well at the moment, 2 of them sitting inside the top 10. Ryan Cox, who's filling in for Ben Hall tonight in the Luke McHugh Racing Commodore, up into 2nd place, and then Brack, who's filling in for Zach Brown in the 2nd of the PBF Race Engineering ZB Commodores. He's in 9th at the moment, so, and Leonard Grossel, the 3rd man, just outside the top 10. So wildcards faring well at the moment.
Yeah, the wildcards are performing very strongly. Perhaps the biggest surprise of the 3 is actually Ryan Cox, because he was not the outright fastest of the 3 in development series 1 week ago. That went to Leonard Grossel, who took 2 wins, and it was a 2nd place in the 3rd race after a bit of assistance at the off of turn 1 from his teammates earlier in race 3. But yeah, Ryan Cox with that sort of pace, not quite what we expected to see from him. Maybe not, at least not that quick, but obviously race pace does play into that as well. But yeah, currently some very strong showings from our wildcard drivers.
Definitely, and on top of that, I think he's caught a few people on the hop a bit by surprise, just to really understand, hey, who is this guy? Can we snap him up? That's pretty much what's going on at the moment. Times are changing that fast, we can actually hardly speak. 30 seconds ago, Brad was inside the top 10. He was 9th, now he's 13th. So everybody's improving. Leonard Grossel's gone up, Cheese has gone up, Steve Burko's now got himself into the top 10. Rutledge has jumped Brap as well. So the margin's very, very tight inside the top 10. It's 9/10 separating the top 10 at the moment, but there's still a lot to play out as we get to the second half of the session. This man, Rhodey, is the one that I'm a bit curious about what's going on here. Termo, or Curtis Sigmanis, who's now actually officially changed his name in AMS, so we can refer to him by his proper name. He's at the bottom of the pile at the moment, but looks set to put in a lap time that's a bit more representative.
Yeah, Termo was comfortably running in the top 10 in practice with the rest of that Serie cohort. He's gone to 9th so far. He will have more to go than that, I would believe. But yeah, really trying to atone for, I suppose, how last year went for him. There were glimpses of the pace that I think Termo and I think especially Serie and probably we were expecting to see of Termo, but it just didn't quite wake up for Termo last year. Yeah, definitely trying to claw back some of that pace. And 9th so far in qualifying, but I expect to see him come out later in the session and improve on that again. But the real interesting question at this point, we've still got 4 minutes left in the session, but it's already starting to think about where the cutoff's going to be for pace and where do you want to be better than to make that top 10.
That's right. So I'm trying to work out where the cutoff is going to be. I reckon it's probably going to be about a 56.4, I think, is probably where I'm expecting it to be. So right now the drivers on that bubble are Bailey Hall and Lockie Locke, who are both on 56.4s. You've got Phil Boak 56.526, Termo with a 56.5, Steve Burko with a 56.5, and then there's a couple of guys knocking on the door with 6s and 7s. So there's plenty of drivers that are really itching for this top 10 at the minute. I just noticed as well, Dane Liccardo had actually put in a purple sector 1, and he'd actually gone to 2nd place, and a 1/10 even
off of Will Devenish's time. So that's not a bad ball at the moment for Dane Liccardo. Ironically, actually, we're still under the lap record, but not by very much. So Devenish has not been able to wrestle the same sort of time that we saw him do earlier in the practice sessions at 55.634. So he's still going to be looking to try and wrestle that lap record away and put his name all over it. Currently in the hands of Luke Rosella. Hopefully not too far away there. This is a good story though, Rhodey. This is a fantastic story. Phil Boak, been a while since he's out of the seat, currently sitting inside the top 10.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see Boakey back. We had a bit of a lean year at PBF last year in the main game. It was just Foley running for the team in our 5th year, but Boakey came back to Dev Series last year and had a strong result at Winton. Couldn't quite make all the rounds, and is going to have a similar position this year. He might not make all the rounds for Supercars, but it will do pretty strongly the rounds he can make. And yeah, he's back in the saddle, back on pace again, which is good to see. And one of a 4-car lineup, although we're not seeing the 4th car out there tonight, but really good to see the PBF co-founder back in the team he founded.
Absolutely. As we said in the intro with the teams a little bit earlier, the old dog is back and willing to show off some new tricks, and he's shown no signs of slowing down despite having the second child in the last couple of years as well. So the ever-expanding Boak family is, I think it's out to 4 now, I believe, 4 people total, husband and wife and 2 kids. So belated congratulations to the Boak family. He's going to have to put in a bit of an effort here, though. He's just been gazumped by NZ Snipes, by Bailey Hall and Lockie Locks. So everybody's improving at the moment.
I've just seen as well, I was cutting through the times, and Termo was green to the pole time out of the first sector. He has caught traffic though through the second sector, so I'm not sure whether that'll hold. He is down, he's stopping his PB, but it won't be enough, and it actually is wanted wide, and actually that might be the end of his run.
Yeah, he's not going to get out again if you're in the pits right now. Steve Burko's was in the pits, but I believe he may have just left the lane in time. Yeah, he has. So everybody's on the track. If you go back to the pits right now, you're done, pretty much. That's it. You are done. So you've got to have a good set of boots on you right now, and you've got to be circulating. So Burko's across the line right now, and I'm just looking to see where everybody else is, because live timing is actually probably a bit further behind than it normally otherwise is. And I can just see Peter Thrower leaving the lane now, so his job is done. He's not going to get another lap in. So he's currently down the order in... Actually, where is Peter Thrower? Trying to work out the list here.
I think...
he's actually just bottom of the pile. Sorry, bottom of the pile.
The last car to start a lap is probably going to be Brenton Foley.
Yes, Foley currently occupying the 13th spot. He's across the line now. He's just got across the line now. Yeah, you're right. Clock's gone 0. So this is critical for a number of drivers here. Bailey Hall's pulling the pin. He's actually heading for pit lane. So he thinks he's done enough to get going. His teammate Nathan Higginson sits 7th. So both the Beyond Racing young guns are in the top 10 as it sits right now.
So now just looking at people like Phil Boak, NZ Snipes, who is improving a little bit on his PB, but I'm not sure if that might actually be enough to put him into the top 10. So that's really the cluster point, is Phil Boak, Snipes, Steve Burko and Brenton Foley as well.
Yep, so Phil Boak's coming to the final corner now, but he's lost 3/10. He's down 3/10 on his PB in sector number 2. So he's really relying on drivers behind. Foley's actually gone purple in sector 1. But then he pulled the trick. He pulled the pin.
Oh, no.
He pulled the pin. So he must have made a mistake in the middle sector. And that's him done. So Phil Boak might be safe.
It's only... no, I was going to say
Snipes.
Ross, but Ross is also in the lane.
Yeah, so NZ Snipes is on a cool-down lap. So Phil Boak survives by the skin of his teeth. Steve Burko out, Foley out. There's nobody else behind that can make any meaningful impact in this session. So provisional pole at the moment with Will Devenish at a 55.788, and then the rest of the top 10, Dane Liccardo, who was only 21 thousandths of a second behind at the time of the checkered flag falling on the session. Ryan Cox, Noah Turra, Leonard Grossel, so 2 of the debutants with the coming up with the wildcards and the substitutes inside the top 5, if you don't mind.
Curtis Igmanis, Nathan Higginson and Bailey Hall, both the young guns have made the top 10 shootout. Lockie Lock and Phil Boak. So this is an interesting story here. So both the CRE race engineering cars got in. Both of the Beyond Racing young guns got in. Both of the amped up racing by CRE cars got in, and a smattering of others. So that's a fantastic mixed up grid for race for the top 10 shootout. Actually, I actually reckon that's a successful qualifying.
Yeah, I think so. There's some good surprises in there as well, with the pace that Dan Liccardo, he's I suppose his confidence in his pace has sort of been on a roller coaster ride over the last few years. He's currently in a state where he still vehemently believes, at least in some circles, that he should be in Super 2. Not with that pace, kiddo. Not with that pace. The surprise package for me of all that actually is really good to see Foley up there. Bokey up there. Used to seeing a PBF driver. It's Bokey up there. I'm really happy to see Bokey up there, though he managed to hold on at the death. But really surprised to see Nathan Higginson up there. He's had some fluctuating pace, and we've seen both ends of the spectrum. Even in Supercars last year, we saw maybe some really average performances for him, but also we bore live witness to his performance at Phillip Island. That we still haven't necessarily 100% confirmed whether it's him on the car or not. Mm-hmm. But I did say to him that if he could do more of that this year, he'd be the deciding factor in the possibly the deciding factor in the little inter-teams battle between the CRE and Beyond. And if he keeps doing that, it's not even the case of drivers like Tim Redmond and Snipes that I had in mind that we're going to be carrying Beyond for pace. If Higo and Bailey can do that sort of stuff for the season, then they're in a pretty good position to maybe be some of the best performing drivers, at least until Tim gets back into it. Because I expect to see we're probably going to see Tim in the top 5 when he does get back in. He's the I haven't updated my stat sheet in a little while, but last I checked, and it probably remains the same. He is the most podiumed driver without a win, which he should hopefully break this year. It's some really good performances there in the qualifying session, and we see what they've got left on the table for the shootout.
Yeah, absolutely. Comments coming in on the live chat as well. I think Jesse's actually just hit the nail on the head there. 20 drivers separated by 1.1 seconds. That's effectively what you see in supercars nowadays, isn't it, Rhodey? Like that's the kind of margins we're talking about here. So that's actually a very, very close session. And just having a little bit of a look at what the times were, like where the cutoff was, more importantly, that's the big one that I think we were talking about. I said it was going to be about a 55.4. So the last man who got in was Phil Boak, and he was the first man with a 55.5. And then the next man up was Lockie Lock with a 56.494. So I wasn't too far off, and there was a few guys that Snipes and Steve Burko, and actually Brenton Foley has done the same lap time as Steve Burko. There was probably about 3 or 4 drivers that could have potentially leapfrog Boak into that last spot inside the top 10. So incredibly close.
Yeah, I'm not saying this to try and cause any angst with PBF, given that I am one of the team boss over there. I don't want to cause a little ruckus there, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised. Bokey's first time back in a supercar in a season entry in something like 1,000 days was the stat I was keeping. I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps Foley maybe had a bit of a mistake and backed off as a result. Maybe saw Bokey up there and just like, it's one qualifying session for the year. Maybe it'd be nice to let Bokey be the PBF car in the shootout, and I can have a crack for the future shootouts across the year.
Well, are you saying you want to get in and have a crack at a shootout?
I mean, I'd be up for a crack in the shootout, not for supercars. We've seen my pace in supercars. The last time I was running was, I can't remember the round, but it was mid-2021. And by that point, I was comfortably at the back of the field. This was back when the wildcards weren't quite so quick. So I was racing those wildcards at the time, as opposed to, the likes of Leonard Grossel and Ryan Cox. I would not be able to compete with those guys. No, I was just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if Foley's realised that he can have a crack at a shootout later in the year, and he's decided with where Bokey's at, maybe it'd be nice just for Bokey to have a crack at one, and he will be the first car out of the lane for the shootout.
He certainly will be the first man out of the lane for the shootout. Here he comes too. So what a moment. Be out of a Supercars seat for the better part of 2 years, and you've come back in, first weekend back in the main game, and you're in the shootout. So what a good story.
Yeah.
What a fantastic story. And good to see the 046 back out again. And of course, it wouldn't be on anything else other than a Commodore, would it, Rhodey? I don't think there's any way, shape or form that Phil Boak was going to get a Holden badge prized away from his grasp.
No, we've had some early team discussion just over what we're going to do for next year. I'd say for next year for Gen 3 is a better way to put it. There's been discussions that maybe we'd look at a Mustang, but realistically, I think we're going to stick with the Camaros, PBF, and Supercars when those become available. But we've been sort of the Holden factory team. I know that Lewis Wedding and Brendan Ross have an opinion on who the real Holden racing team is, but we've been running Holdens ever since the team started in 2018. I think we're the only team to actually run Holdens consecutively for all that time. And you wouldn't see Boak in anything else.
No, you certainly would not. Well, he's got the whole track to himself though, and he actually made a little bit of a meal of it coming onto the front straight, I think, just in the last couple of parts of turn 9 there. He's across the line now, heading towards turn number 1, the hardest stop on the circuit. This is where you've got to really be precise with your braking, and you have to manage it throughout the course of a race stint as well. You've got to constantly shift the braking marker as the fuel burns off, as the tyres wear out. Adjust your bias and your bars accordingly to get the most effective balance. Through the chicane, rode the curve fairly nicely through turn 1, 2 and 3. Now through the fast chicane, clip, clip. And just be careful because the car just wants to push, it wants to understeer when it hits the curb, heading all the way out towards the outside of turn 5. A little bit off the apex going into turn number 6 through this really awkward kink and then onto the last corner on the circuit. Got the apex nicely. That's a little bit better with the throttle application heading out of the final corner. He did a 56.526 to get in. He does 57.2 to set the opening salvo in the shootout.
And it's not bad considering that cycling back through, the track has lost a little bit of the grip edge to it, and also some drivers maybe do need more than just that one outlap to get started. Maybe not quite the run he wanted to start that lap, but crucially he set a time, and he will put himself pretty comfortably if any of the guys in front of him go for a harder crack and perhaps come unstuck. There are a few steep curves around here. I did watch at least one of the Pixel cars roll it off a curb in the practice sessions, so keep an eye for that in the future. But good solid lap from Phil Boak to start the session off.
Certainly was. Here comes Lockie Lock in the number 237 amped up racing by CRE Mustang. 5 active energy blasted all over the car for this year, and we said this is probably one of our favourite liveries just because it's some so outlandish colours. That's the thing, and it just pops up and grabs your attention. He's well wide of the apex there, but he's looking for the late apex, which is one of the 2 lines you can take. It's actually a little bit quicker if you can get the late apex and just brake a little bit deeper into turn 1, carry the momentum, and then let the car's momentum just gradually slow you down. You can pick up a late apex, get on the throttle a little bit earlier, pick up a little bit of time. You don't want to dip 2 tyres in the grass like that though, because you'll lose time.
Yeah, it was a pretty good run through that first sector. Looking like it's pushing a little bit as we come through the sort of higher or the longer of the flip-flops. But he's 4/10 to the good out of the second sector split. It's really just going to get that run out of the last corner. And it looks pretty good. Little bit of slide at the rear, but all to get some pace out of the car. Running down to the start-finish line, and Lockie Lock sets
56.7.
56.7. So he goes
about 3/10.
Half a second better.
Half a second better than Phil Boak, but he was 3/10 slower than what he did to get into the shootout. So that's actually not a bad representative time. Like, that's sort of like the benchmark, about 1/4 of a second to about 4/10 of a second away from the shootout. Sorry, away from your qualifying time to reproduce it in the shootout. It's actually not too bad a job. He's done a very nice effort there.
Absolutely. Now we're going to swing it across to Bailey Hall, the first of the 2 Beyond Racing Young Guns drivers we're going to see in the shootout tonight. He's in the black and red number 38, and he is not far off crossing the line to start his lap.
56.319 was the time to get into the shootout for Bailey Hall. Looks like he got a fairly good run out of the last corner, heading down towards turn number 1. You want to brake pretty much right on the 150 metre point, because you're doing about 260, 270 k's an hour before you touch the brake pedal heading into turn 1. And there's not a huge brake application for the chicane either, because the brakes are already red hot from approaching turn number 1, and they don't get much of an effort to cool down in time for turns 2 and 3, because then you've got to stamp on the pedal again right here, and it gets another huge injection of temperature into the brake rotor. So your brake ducting's got to be absolutely spot on. Oh, he's had a lose.
No.
He's lost it. He gassed it up off the curb, but he's got to set the time, importantly. He's got to keep going, and that's unfortunate. He was looking very, very handy in Sector 1. He was up on Lockie Lock's time. And this, unfortunately, for the moment, is going to put him at the back of the top 10. So Boak and Lock will move up a spot, and Bailey Hall will drop down 2. So not a good run for him in the shootout. But hey, the pressure's on. That's why the shootout exists.
Exactly, it's a chance to try and boil down all your pace. You know, it takes a 5-lap run, takes a 10-lap run. Even some guys, it takes 20 or 30 laps to really nut that pace in. To boil that down, to get that sorted after 1 out lap. And it's a challenge for drivers. Some drivers can get there, some drivers can't. Some drivers know their pace they're going to set. Some drivers are pushing into the unknown when it comes to a shootout pace. I'm interested to see how far Nathan Higginson is pushing now as the second of the Beyond Racing Young Guns in the shootout.
Yeah, well, the teammates going back to back here in the shootout, one after the other. The man who stepped up from Super 3 into Super 2 and then Super 2 into Supercars last year, and now the almost Development Series champion of 2022. He was the runner-up to Lockie Lock. Well, he's missed the apex there at turn number 2, and that's cost him. Look at the time. He's lost half a second in Sector 1 alone.
Yeah, not the ideal start to this lap. He can probably still pick up a little bit as he comes through sectors 2 and 3, but he is now going to be under the pump, so under his own head of pressure, amongst other things. I imagine the guys in the chat will be pretty supportive for him if he is sitting with the rest of the Beyond guys. But yeah, not a bad second sector. He did take a little bit of time off of where he was in Sector 1, but not enough, and I don't think he's got a significant enough improvement of a run out of the last corner to make a difference. So at this stage, Nathan Higginson will slot into third place, actually.
Yeah, so
he second.
Yeah, so he sort of managed to hold his own in the second sector, despite the fact he'd lost out most of his time in sector number 1. But Sector 2 is so quick and so short that like you can manage to keep your sort of time that you've lost in your pocket. You don't have to really do anything serious to gain any more time, but you don't lose a lot either. So for Higginson, most of that time all came undone through the opening sector. As we switch over to Curtis Sigmanis, and he will be the 5th man out in the shootout. The second of the Mustangs for Valvoline and number 51, and for CRE Engineering.
Yeah, good.
Oh, he sailed through. That's what he did at the beginning of the qualifying session as well. He went for the lunge on Daniel Cox, and he sailed right through the corner. Car just did not want to turn, and understood. And on top of that, it's getting sideways off of turn 3 as well. So I reckon his run's going to be hurt all the way up the back chute here. It said he only lost a 1/10.5 in Sector 1. It looked a lot worse than that, but I got a funny feeling he's going to lose a bit more than that by the time we get to the Sector 2 split, because it looked like the tail wagged the dog coming out of the second and third turns, and I was right. He's lost more time.
He has, but not so much. He is still going to come second. He will lose the right of being the fastest series driver in the session so far to Lockie Lock, but still running second. Actually improved a little bit off the last corner, and to be fair, pretty good run considering that on the exit of the last corner on his warm-up lap, he got the car properly sideways trying to get out of the corner and probably lost a couple of tenths there as well. So I don't know whether those would have made the difference. Making turn 1 probably would have helped as well, but not a bad run from Termo, but I think he definitely has a little more in the tank.
First of the wildcards now about to take to the track, Leonard Grossel, one of the guys that's been head and shoulders above the rest in the development series, only after 3 races and 1 round. So I think he feels that his wildcard appearance in Supercars might very well be justified. And he's got the Lowndes 888 Commodore from Bathurst last year as the wildcard car of choice for his first outing in ASR Supercars. Goes for the double apex through turn number 1. That's not something we've seen quite so often in competition here at the track. Rides the curbs nicely, about a 10th up so far, just shy of, so not a bad lap so far.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the European approach to driving around a track. You know, maybe the more of the GT style to it. But no, really good solid sector, first sector from Leonard there. Nice use of the curbs through here. Maybe getting a little bit tight on the second one through there, but he is now up a little bit more. He's up by 0.2 per second over Lockie Lock, probably aiming for a mid 56 at this point. And he would be the first driver of the last few to get back on pace with where they were meant to be positioned. And yeah, improves by 0.3 the end to a 56.421.
56.421, and he did a 56.1 to get into the shootout. So we're getting back, as you said, back on pace and back to about 0.3 or so off of your qualifying pace. So that's about where I think the aim is for all these drivers. Get to within about 2 or 0.3 of your time, you're looking pretty good. Now we get into some of the heavy hitters. There's 4 of them left to go. The second of the 5 Active Energy backed up racing by CRE Mustangs. Noah Tara aboard the 26. I'm sure his father Greg's watching on proudly at the moment, watching him make his main game full-time debut. He's had a few wildcards and he's impressed, but to be in the top 10 shootout on full-time debut, hats off to you, Noah. Off we go.
Yeah, good run out of the last corner there. Nice run down to turn 1. A bit of the wider line, which was good to see, although very much wide there. So going for the later apex run, similar to what we saw from Lockie Lock, which would make sense with the pair of them being teammates. Comfortable run here through 2 and 3. Good use of the curb, kept the rear in check, and he's got a good run up over the hill.
Time's down though, nearly 0.2 down, so watch the curbs here. Flip, flip. Took as much as he dared, kept the 2 tyres in bounds. That's the important piece of the puzzle at the turn 4 and 5 chicane. Let's see if he's been able to claw back any of that time through Sector 2. He was about 1.5 down. He's clawed a little bit of it back, so he's not doing too badly here, but the third sector's quite short. It's all about the power down out of the final corner, heading towards the line. What does the time look like as he gets to the line? 56.8, so it actually went back the other way. So
yeah,
the more seasoned veteran in Lockie Lock of the 2 teammates has the upper hand.
There was a lot of push at the apex of that last corner there on the run down to sort of the curved acceleration zone down into the straight, and I think really what cost him is he had to get off the throttle and tame that understeer as he came through the corner to get back on the racing line. Out of the corner, that's probably where those 3.10s came in, but yeah, Leonard Grossel still at the top as we're coming now to Ryan Cox, the second of the wildcards.
Second of the wildcards, second of the wildcards to make the shootout. Actually, second of the substitutes as well, because what a moment for Ben Hall, watching from Sydney at the moment, who couldn't make tonight, seeing this car in the top 10 shootout in what is looking like it's an extremely capable set of hands with Ryan Cox.
Yeah, so Coxie performed very well in the Development Series 1 week ago, taking the, I think the second quickest driver of the night, and he's looking pretty well as well here. He's only a 10th off of the best time of Leonard Grossel, who was his main rival for Dev Series 1 week ago. So expect to see some competitiveness continue for these two across into tonight's racing. But through the second sector, he's actually up on Grossel's time, so he's improved by about 1.5 across that second sector.
55.890 was the time for Ryan Cox to get into the shooter. He was only one of 3 drivers to break the 56-second barrier. He's going to go outside that. He goes second. Oh, look at the margins. The margins, 42 thousandths of a second, Cox to Grossel. So it's all happening all over again, Rody. It's like it was Dev Series a week ago.
Yeah, there's gonna be some fun intonations between the two of them in the chat probably after the night's over. But on the chalkboard, 1-0 currently to Grossel over Ryan Cox, and we've now got somebody who reckons they should have been in that Super 2 battle a week ago, but based off their pace, they're definitely not anywhere near it. It's Dane Liccardo for Seri Performance Racing.
Oh, he's never going to let this live it down, is he? This joke. This is going to be the running joke of the year, I think. I'm a talentless hack. Get me back into Super 2. Mate, you made the top 10 shootout, for goodness sake. You belong in Supercars. Here we go. Dane Liccardo aboard the always tiling back CRE Performance Racing. That pushed a while. He pushed that brake pedal hard, but I think he pushed it hard too late, and the car went sailing into turn number 1. Almost went off the road.
Yeah, that was not the best run through that first sector. We know that he's got similar time to what Will can achieve. I'm interested to see what Will can achieve after Dane. But yeah, started the run not too good. He's about 3/10 off of the pace of Leonard Grossel through that first sector. He's looking a little cleaner here through the second sector, and the second split. Actually, he's gone the other way. He's actually lost a little bit more time again, so he's about 4/10 off. So he's currently pegged to actually fall into 5th place, unless he can pull a decent run out over the final corner.
I don't think he's going to pull much out here. You're right, spot on, 5th place, 56.899. Now, what I think happened there, as he's, I can see him pulling over to the side of the track there, he's a bit of a smoke, so I think he pulled the handbrake on. What I think he did there, Rhodey, was he just looked to bring it home. He didn't want to, after he realised he'd gone deep at turn 1 and screwed the lap, basically, he decided, you know what, I just can't afford to throw it off the road here. I need to get a reasonable starting position. I'll just get home and worry about everything else later.
Absolutely, and look, you know what? 10th in the top 10 is still comfortably ahead of. You're still in the top 50% of the grid for tonight, so you're still setting yourself up well for a run and fits it even better. And now we've got the provisional pole sitter in Will Devonish, and pretty empty road for him up ahead, both on the track in terms of the timing. The person to beat is Leonard Grossel, who was comfortably 10th second behind him in the qualifying session.
He's no stranger to this. He's been in his fair share of shootouts. He knows what the drill is and how to execute it. Rides the curbs quite nicely through turns 2 and 3. Only up by 8 thousandths of a second at the first sector intermediate. So this might be closer than we actually think. It's going to be in this little chute here, just these couple of turns right here, I reckon, where it's going to be turn 6, 7 and 8. No curb at 6, little bit of curb at 7. It doesn't exist at 8. How much time did he gain? He only gained little under a tenth, so he didn't gain by very much. So how does he get the power down out of the final corner here? Uses all the available road, drives it to the line. Is it going to be enough?
Yep.
It is. He gained time in every sector, so he's a 10th and a half clear at the end of the day, but nobody breaks the 56-second barrier in the top 10 shootout. But boy, Rhodey, we had plenty of mixed up results in that shootout.
Absolutely, yeah, and Rossi96 said it in the chat best. We were very nearly, we're about 20 seconds off there. If we've gone the other way, we're going to have a wild card front row, which is, I don't think it's something we've ever seen in the in the 6 years now of Supercars that we've been running. So, but still, wildcard 2-3 in the first shootout of the year.
Yeah, you're not wrong. What a great way to start the season. What a great way to start the season with a mixed-up grid, top 10 shootout delivering a bit of results, some debutants and some wildcards mixing it up in here. I think this is starting to vindicate what we were talking about a little while ago, that this could be one of the most closely contested seasons we've had in ASR Supercars.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, this is still, shootout one of qualifying one of a very dense season. But yeah, based on the way the grids conducted themselves in the 2 official sessions we've had so far, some really strong showings. And some drivers, it'd be interesting to see as well, some drivers maybe not quite where their pace dictates they should be. I mean, we saw some drivers that probably should have made the top 10, but didn't quite manage to duck in there. Some drivers in the shootout, Dane Liccardo obviously being one, who will be starting off 5th despite having the pace for the front row in qualifying. And there's the other one as well. He is only coming from 10th. Bailey Hall is probably going to make up a few spots as well in the race session, which is not too far away.
Yeah, well, he was the big loser out of that one, unfortunately. With the only driver to really make a proper mistake in the shootout session by going off and looping the car at the second sector intermediate. All the other mistakes that drivers had made, it was either just by running a little bit long at turn 1, but they still kept the car on the road and kept it going so they could set a lap time. But yeah, he's the one I think that'll probably be a little bit upset with how his shootout lap went.
Yeah, but the crucial bit with the shootout is just a qualifying session. All it sets you up for is essentially the run down to turn 1. From there, anything can happen. We saw this with the Dev Series guys last week out. Although, to be fair, everyone was pretty well behaved at turn 1 on the first lap. But we just still see some guys trying to go 3 and 4 wide through turn 1, which doesn't quite work around Calder. It's not a very wide track. the important thing for the guys to remember is this is a 40-lap race. You're not gonna win any championships. You're not gonna become a hero by trying to dive bomb 4 cars into turn 1 on the first lap. So, nice calm approach. You've got 40 laps to get some times done. I see. I think we got the admins, the live stewards just testing that the penalty system still applies. Lewis waiting for a second stop go there for something a bit scrupulous. But it's going to be. I think really it's less a case of how you qualify, more a case of how you run the first lap. And obviously the other question as well is how the strategy plays out. And we got the advantage this year, although I'm not sure we're going to see it in the racing tonight necessarily. But thanks to the work of Nathan Higginson, we do now have differential tyre compound sidewall text colours for the cars this year. So we will be able to tell without guesswork or based on the pace of the car whether a car is on the softs or the hards.
Yeah, that's an important new feature that I think a few of drivers have actually been looking forward to, is actually just working out what tyres people are on. I mean, we've often philosophized, been philosophical about and prophesized what tyres people are on just by looking at the kind of pace that people have been doing throughout the course of a race. But now we're actually going to be able to find out for real.
Yeah, so it will help a little bit. Granted, I say at least at my end, and to be fair, AMS is actually running a little nicer than I thought it would be running at this point of the game's life and the life of my computer. So I can probably bump it up my settings for future races to the point where I can actually see the tyre wall in some level of detail. But even at my blur, I can still see a small streak of yellow on most of the cars that go around. And to be fair, the white will stand out fairly clearly compared to the yellow. So essentially, if I can see the sidewall riding, they're on a hard tyre. If I can't, they're probably on a soft. But all I can say is for the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised, I'm not surprised for today, I think a lot of guys are sticking with the softs. The hards are probably, for a race length, they're going to be the faster tyre. But either way, you're going to have to pick up fuel. And at that point, it's probably worth spending a few, another second or two, if that, in the lane to get soft tyres, than to run hards and then lose the pace on track instead. So I think realistically, for a lot of the tracks where it's open compound, most teams are going to stick with soft tyres. But even just for the rounds where we have got hards, it'd be nice to have that sort of that touch of realism, that element of realism with the cars where you actually see they are on hard tyres for a hard tyre round.
Well, here we go. Have a look at this on the practice monitors. We've got the Young Guns teammates side by side. And I'm not sure if they're actually attempting practice starts or if they're actually trying to have a drag race on what is known as the Calder Park drag strip, because that's what it is when it's not a racetrack. It's a drag strip right down the front straight.
Yeah, so a couple of guys getting practice starts done. Everyone's sort of compacting themselves over to the right side of the track to give the guys who are wanting to essentially get some lap practice in a chance to get by cleanly. And good to see everyone practicing, or a good bunch of guys practicing their starts, because it has been 3 months since a lot of these guys have started a supercar in anger. It's not a hard thing to do, but it can be an easy thing to forget how to do properly. So good to see a couple of guys out there practicing. Another thing we'll see some guys practicing as we see Bailey Hall on cue actually doing that for me and taking a very quick line actually on the run into the pit lane, is practicing the pit in. And pit in's the biggest one to practice, because pit in, this is the longest pit in on a racetrack, I think, on the calendar. The only one that maybe comes close in terms of time spent on pit in is Bathurst. But you can gain and lose positions on your speed in the pit in around Calder, and everyone's going to pit in at some point. So if you can make up time there, that's the place to do it. So guys will be practicing that as well, really trying to cut themselves down to the quickest run on pit in, because it could be, it could only be a second or two the difference, but based on the pace we're seeing, a second or two could be worth maybe 5 spots depending on how these battles play out.
Yeah, so I think that's what the Beyond Racing Young Guns guys were doing there. They're just trying to work out where they can go and how long the pit run actually is, because timing for pit entry is going to be a massive issue. The double stack is a major issue here because it's so narrow. So the race stewards have actually said there is no side-by-side stacking as per what AMS actually allows. So that's a new thing that I think it's been brought up a couple of years ago in 2021 when we were last here, that because if the safety car comes out, there's a likelihood that everybody's going to want to pit. There's no side-by-side stacking at all, so you have to just cop
the stack on each, the inline stacking on the chin, and just deal with it when it happens to come up, should it actually arise. What else is there with regards to pits? As you said, yes, it's the longest pit entry and pit length of the calendar. And like a lot of the short tracks as well, Rody, this is the big thing. The short tracks, there is always the risk of going a lap down. And because this pit lane is so long, you will go a lap down. So we are going to see plenty of drivers, especially the ones that are a bit further down the field, when they come in to take what we expect to be a single stop, that they will go a lap down, and then they'll have to wait for front runners to unlap themselves to get that lap back. So it's going to take a little bit of time to process the entire field.
Yeah, that's another point as well, is the time you spend in the pits compared to the lap is quite long, and the pit exit will play interesting as well. Although, to be fair, the way that you sort of fall out, the only people I think are likely to be an issue is maybe some of the front runners that end up tangled up with some of the back runners, or the back runners that end up tangled up with the cars that are lapping them. But yeah, the pit exit, we've seen this in practice sessions, I think 2 years ago, or the last time we were here, we actually had a penalty in the practice session for an incorrect pit exit, or a dangerous pit exit. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well. But I think most of the drivers, at least in supercars, are fairly well versed on how to correctly exit a pit lane without causing a 5-car accident. But touching wood that we won't see any of that in the racing tonight.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see any of that. We're just waiting for everybody to grid up for the race 1 start and the formation lap. So here we go. First race of 2023. Sadly, a couple of drivers that haven't been able to make it this round for various reasons. Zach Brown, unfortunately, not going to be making his full-time debut this week. He's unfortunately had a wheel issue. And in the last sort of couple of hours, Tim Redmond as well, unfortunately, out with a wheel drama. We're looking forward to seeing what he could produce. So there's a lot over the course of the next sort of 7 to 8 months of supercars racing to see pan out as the race 1 grid starts to roll towards turn 1, Brody.
Absolutely. So starting from pole is Will Devonish, who makes an unpaid media outlet, is the predicted race 1 winner. And curious to see your predictions in the chat on who you think is going to take the title. But yeah, Will Devonish off of the front row for Siri Engineering. Alongside him is Leonard Grossel, the first of the Dev Series wildcards in a Super Team Auto Racing 888 wildcard car. Third, it will be Ryan Cox, the second of the wildcards, subbing in for Ben Hall at Q Racing. Fourth is Lockie Lock, the first of the Amped Up Racing entries, with his teammate in behind him over Noah Tara. Sixth is Dane Liccardo, the first of the Series Performance Racing drivers, a bit far off where we thought we'd spot him in the qualifying order, with his indirect teammate Termo Kurtisek Marnus behind him in seventh for Series Engineering. Eighth is Phil Boak with a solid run in the shootout for PBF Motorsport, the sole PBF Motorsport car here tonight, with Nathan Hinginson in ninth, and his teammate up behind him, Bailey Hall, in 10th. 11th is NZ Snipes from Beyond Racing Team Canifa, with Steve Burko in 12th. 13th is Brendan Foley, a bit further back than we used to seeing him. Alongside him, the other Holden Racing Team entry of you know what I mean, of Lewis Wedding. 15th is Brendan Ross for Real Pixel Holden Racing Team, with Brap in 16th, second of the PBF cars. 17th is Cheese. 18th is Cam Rutledge. 19th is Coxie, and 20th will be Pete Thrower. And that was a bit of a rush job because we don't have much time for an outlap here.
We certainly do not. Our attention now turns to the lights as we get underway. Supercars is back for ASR in 2023. We are set to go for race 1 of the championship, and off we go into season 2023. And for the first time in a long time, Will Devonish has not bobbled the start. My goodness gracious me, it's a miracle. But behind him, it's 3 wide. All the way as the eye can see, there's traffic cones going flying in the back as people were scrambling left and right, taking up a little bit of grass on the run down towards turn 1. But Devonish has got the whole shot and he's through. But look who's right behind. Noah Tara with a fantastic start from the third row of the grid, up to P2 already ahead of the wildcard duo.
Yeah, the wildcard duo having a pretty good battle there, actually. A bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, I think, between Cox and Gressel, which saw Gressel tipped out off the exit of turn number 4. So he's got a little bit of battle to come back through. But Dane Liccardo now trying to take his position up alongside Ryan Cox into his door on the braking opportunity there at the end of the long back straight. And it's CRE 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as we end the first lap of this race.
The laps are going to go quickly. They're all sub 1 minute. The first three out of the first 4 tracks in the championship you circumvent or circumnavigate rather in under 60 seconds. So it's going to be a lot of sprint racing to open the 2023 campaign, as Tara's still trying to put some pressure on Will Devonish, and then Brian Cox just leaving the door open a little bit there for Dane Liccardo. He couldn't take advantage of it at turn 1, and there was a little bit of contact on the exit of turn number 1. So getting feisty in the early going, and a bit further behind, it looks like Phil Boak has managed to make some headway. He's gained a couple of spots. He's up behind Tara's teammate Lockie Lock. And here he comes. Have a look at this.
Now.
Going down the inside. Lock sees it coming. That's a move from a long way back. Gets it done. So not a bad pass there for Phil Boak up into 5th place. Grossel's gone backwards from the front row of the grid, Brady. He's lost 6 spots.
Yeah, he got tipped off on the first lap of the battle with Ryan Cox, but he has put the head back down. He's trying, much with Cox, they're really trying to, I suppose, put a bit of a showing to the guys that they would have been racing had they not been promoted from Dev Series last year. Obviously, he's the split between Locke and Higginson, who were the combatants for the title in Super 2 last year. And Locke
some
actually
contact
of Boak, and he's actually nearly spun, and he's dropped the spot then to Grossel and to Higginson and Igmanis.
There was 2 battles that I was trying to watch simultaneously, and I didn't know which one to pick. There was Ryan Cox trying to go through on Noah Tara, and then a bit further behind there was the ones behind with Lockie Lock caught up, and unfortunately for Lockie Lock, he's lost out several spots there and has fallen down the order to 9th. So through has gone Grossel, Higginson and Igmanis, and then Bailey Hall is there, the next man inside the 10. I'll tell you what now, Liccardo's now getting fairly racy on the back of Noah Tara right now as well. And this will be the first time that these 2 young bulls have gone head-to-head as well.
Yeah, with Noah, this being his first year in the Supercars, and Dane obviously having moved up the year before, they never really overlapped outside of the Enduro Cup, but Noah very much sort of opens the door for Dane to get through. A bit of a team communication there, and actually Cox has gotten through. He's battling with Will Devonish for the lead of the race.
Yeah, he is, and he's just a bit further up the order as well, so we're keeping an eye on that with vested interest. There's a massive argument going on down here between Burko and the Real Pixel Holden cars, as they're trying to absolutely mug him like a man that comes to your door and wants to take all your money to go to some silly church, Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever they call it. But Burko for the moment's holding on. Daniel Cox has made a little bit of progress too, but like, look at this. How's the pack at the moment behind Burko, Rhodey? He's a massive cork in a champagne bottle here right now.
Yeah, I'm going to get the apologies in early. If we don't catch any of your awesome passes tonight, simply because there is racing the entire length of the field. And we're not going to catch all of it. But yeah, this is a great little conga train. And perhaps makes sense that the train's behind Burko, because Burko spent...
check out the 3 wide that was across the stripe behind as well. Who was that? Was that Foley and the Mustangs?
No, it's Brapp.
Or it's Brapp and the Mustangs.
Brapp and 2 of the Beyond Racing Mustangs.
Oh, wow.
But, the point I was going to make with Steve Burko is he has teamed up with Darren Kemp for the Enduros the last couple of years out, and I mean, if you're going to learn off anyone on how to set up a train around a racetrack, Kempy is going to be one of the guys you go to.
This is what I was talking about before, Roddy. Check out the 3 wide action coming onto the main straight. There they go. Between, yeah, as you said, Brapp and the 2 Mustangs. And then I think was it the second car, Foley maybe starting to buy into this a little bit. But heading down into turn number 1, here it comes out in front here. Yeah, and then Foley closed up on all of them because they were all too scared to go too late on the brakes. So then it became a 4-car battle. Yeah,
Foley's in an interesting position this year, at least talking to him pre-race. Similar position to where, I suppose is a way of putting it, as to where the Pixel guys had themselves last year, pretty confident, they weren't of pace. And to be fair, qualifying didn't quite go Foley's way, but he may be not fighting in the top 10 like we used to see, but he is, knuckling down and getting into the thick of it. And he's having a good little battle here with Cam Rutledge and Enzo Snipes, and tacked on the back of Pete Thrower and his teammate in Brapp. And I imagine he gets to Brapp. Brapp is a PBF driver, PBF Development Series driver, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of a a coordinated exchange of positions there, but good running for Bolly. Maybe not with the position he would want, but definitely with the sort of action he'd like to be getting out of tonight.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'll tell you what now, Burko's got all the right defensive dance moves going on at the moment. He's holding Ross and Wedding and Daniel Cox at bay quite handsomely. He's committing quite early to the inside line going down into turn number 1 whenever the guys behind get slipstream on him. And he holds that line really well and then manages to hold them off through the chicane too, which gives him, the high ground. Heading out of turn 3, gets the foot to the floor and drives away from him. So for the moment, he's been doing this for about 3 or 4 consecutive laps and doing a really, really good job. And I don't know what's going to happen here because this is as you said, it's a massive conga train at the moment. Who's in here? You've got Burko at the head. Then you've got Brendan Ross, Lewis Wedding, Daniel Cox, Bailey Hall, who's gone backwards. He's been off the road. Burko's made a mistake. He's been off the road. This will be trouble here because Ross is going to look for the round the outside. Burko has to concede because he was way too slow to try and defend that on the inside going down through the chicane. And now he's vulnerable, and now Wedding's going to sneak through here at turn 6. Done.
Yeah, if you're not careful here, Burko, the rail engine might very much become the caboose the way he's going. But he is starting to slip down through that train now. But he has managed to, he is still giving Lewis a fair run for his money, and Cox is trying to bind this as well now. And this is what happens when you have a big train like this, especially if they all get caught up behind each other. It sort of forces everyone into big slipstream trains, and if this was F1, there'd be...
Speak of slipstream, here comes Cox. He got the whole shot from Lewis Wedding, heading down into turn number 1 there, and had to back out of it. Cox has actually gained a spot in all of that, because Wedding was got a good run off the final corner. Cox went with him. He had a fantastic run, and now he's picked up another one. And here we go. Burko's now officially being, quote-unquote, hung out to dry.
Yeah, got shuffled down the order there, sort of run a little wide, which is what got Bailey Hall a bit of the incentive. Bailey Hall is also recovering, so he's got some good pace on board. As does I saw Brett sneaking in the background there. I thought it was going to be an invasion of 3 wide, but we've actually got both the PBF cars side by side now in a battle for 15th.
There's battle going on. Did Burko get spilt there? Oh, he's had a massive accident.
He took a wheel off actually, so that car's out. Yeah, I don't think he got any assistance there, but yeah, that was
yeah, so that was caught in the back of that was in the back of shot. Now, did he get served? Did he get some help here? I'm not quite sure. It's very hard. There's a little bit of a bump from Foley, but I reckon he lost it on the grass and then car thunk. And that was the end of that.
So that was a shame because he was running pretty well. Obviously, you mentioned slipping back through the train a little bit, but still having some competitive running out there. And it sort of has and it hasn't sort of broken up the train behind him. It's actually put Bailey Hall back with Foley now in a little battle. I keep trying to cut forward, but there is some mega racing happening down the back, which makes it pretty hard to.
Well, Dane Liccardo, Ryan Cox and Will Devonish have broken away here. They got nearly 4 seconds on Leonard Grossel, who's actually recovering through the field at the moment. He's just gone past Noah Turra in the last lap for 4th place. And then you've still got this battle that's happening like outside the top 10. Have a look at this. Bailey Hall having to fend off both the PBF Race Engineering Commodores and NZ Snipes honing in on them like a Kiwi missile at the moment in the Mustang.
Yeah, just in the background, it's Cam Rutledge that sprayed wide at turn 1. But yeah, there's like a little train forming here as well, sort of up behind Bailey Hall at the moment. It's really not sort of Bailey Hall's train, it's just all of this battle. Just seeing in the live chat comment from Jesse Bennett, the Burko train has derailed, sad choo-choo noises. Yep, that's an appropriate response to what happened a couple of laps ago now. But yeah, good little battle now, and actually both the Kiwi cars have brought back into this now, both Beyond Mustangs, and Hall almost a cork in the bottle, even though he had the pace to run the top 10 in the shootout.
Yeah, well, Foley's looking to try and put a move on the 38 here in the next couple of laps. He had a little bit of a half look at turn 6. There wasn't anything of any doing. And there's 3 wide action again between the Mustangs from New Zealand and Brap for that second or third time. I've lost count already, and we're already into the 11th lap. So laps are ticking off quick here. Foley hasn't been able to pick his marker here. Oh, he won't be picking anything now. He's gone well deep. He's just gone plowed straight through and let his teammate Brap right through as well.
Yeah, slightly rushed rejoin, but I think no one too much the worse off there. And that actually has sort of split up the battle pack as well, because you're right, there was a little 3 wide run with with the two Kiwi Mustangs, but they've now dropped back as well. Actually, a yellow flag for a second here down at corner. It's Nathan Higginson, who's out of the top 10 now.
Yes, Higgos has gone out of the top 10 as we're just having a quick look at Foley bowling it wide at turn number 1. And Higginson is, he was in 17th now, so he's fallen right through the field. He's got Cam Rutledge on the back of him as well. What happened to Higo?
I just went back and had a look. He was having a good little battle with Boki and Lockie Lock, and I think he compression locked the rears into the braking zone and just pirouetted the car around the nose, and that's what dropped him the spots.
Yes, here we go. Heading into turn 6. Yep, that'll be compression lock for sure. Oh, so lucky for... Oh, 2 cars. So lucky. Ross was the second one on the scene, and then Lockie Lock was the other one who just managed to avoid some contact. So someone was kissed on the proverbial by something else right there.
Yeah. But it's interesting now with how this has played out. So Boki is he's still in a good battle now with Lockie Lock. He's the remnants of that battle that Higginson was in earlier. Still holding Lockie Lock for 7th, but through all of this, despite where they qualified, and they always managed to find a way, the 2 Pixel cars now into the top 10.
They have managed to find their way into the top 10. 9th and 10th is where they are. Higginson just ironically off camera has lost another spot to Cam Rutledge, who's actually a lot further down the order than what he was probably expecting. But such is the way the field is at the moment and how everything's unfolded, it's very, very mixed up. Here's Brapp on screen, so he's, as we said, looking after driving the number 2 PBF Race Engineering Commodore this round. Zach Brown out with some wheel dramas a couple of days ago. He's actually still got a penalty to serve as well, Zach Brown. If you eagle-eyed viewers of the broadcast remember, at Pukekohe he had a major qualifying mishap with Corey McFarlane in second qualifying for the last Supercars race of the season, and he was actually given a rear grid start penalty for Supercars. We knew that he was going up to the main game in 2023, so that penalty of course will carry over to the next round of the championship, which is going to be at Sydney Motorsport Park on the Druitt layout, not the Gardner layout, so it's the short layout. And as we said earlier, there's 3 of the first 4 tracks in the championship this year, all short tracks, all sub 1 minute laps. So it's, to quote the Greeks, it's going to get hectic.
It's a very high energy start of the season with a lot of short tracks like that, because the time gaps are going to be minimal. It's going to mean there's plenty of trains of cars that are just a 10th or 2 off each other. Just looking through the field, I was just watching along with Brapp and the cars behind, but Snipes and Foley had a bit of a run together through one of the flip flops, and they've sort of fallen into their own little spaces on track. But I mentioned Ben Hall mentioned in the chat earlier, he's watching along and he's quite happy to see how his car is doing and how CRE is 1, 2, 3. And actually, I've just noticed Dane Liccardo has just put a move on Will Devlin in turn 1 to take the lead of the race. Yeah,
he's just got that done. I think he looks like he did it at turn 1. So Dane Liccardo would like a turn at the head of this queue. So this will be, I don't know, is this his first laps ever led in Supercars competition? I'd hate to think that it's not, because he's been up the front of the field on a couple of occasions, but I don't recall him ever crossing the stripe first on a lap.
If it's not his first if it's not his first overall, it might be his first ones that he's had where it hasn't been as a result of staying out further than the cars ahead of him when it comes to pitting. It might be his first genuine sort of lap led in Supercars, but yeah, that's not only is he leading lap, he's actually managed to pull away a little bit from Will Devenish. Now there's still the best part of 24. Sorry, I can math. 24 laps left in this race, so that doesn't actually mean anything yet, but he's just starting to put those stats in, and pretty good running for CRE, currently 1, 2, 3, and Cox as well, still good showing. He's tacked on the back of Will Devenish, and we know what Will's pace is like, so for Dane to play with Will, maybe not too much of a surprise, but for Cox to come out of Super 2, his first race in a supercar, and he's attached to the back of the guy that's been the goalpost, if you want to run at the front of the Supercars field for almost every season we've run. Not too shabby at all.
No, definitely not too shabby at all. And I mean, for Ryan Cox being right up in front of the field, I don't think a lot of people were tapping him potentially after or before development series to be up the pointy end of the field in supercars this early. This is almost like a Bailey Hall type moment from 2022 where he progressed through the field so quickly that he's now in the main game. And Cox is actually having a look here. He's having a real good look at Will Devonish going into turn 1, and he's got the move done and clean as a whistle, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, very nice run through there, and perhaps Will, compared to the other guys around him, he's definitely the senior of the 3 drivers in this battle. He's been both in terms of track experience and just life experience. He knows it's probably not worth fighting on lap 17 for a position. Let these guys run a little faster to the front. Perhaps Will can run his own strategy. I'm not sure. Obviously, Cox is in a CRE car, but I'm not sure he's actually in cahoots with the team in terms of setup direction or in terms of race strategy. So perhaps letting Cox and maybe Dane go out there, battle, use up some tyre, eat into their own margins, and Will can comfortably cruise through on a longer term race strategy and maybe come out ahead. But either way, I think for Will, it's a good result. I mean, his main championship contender, sort of that we were sort of pegging for this year, is currently on the sidelines, and it doesn't mean that Tim can't have a fight for this title, but it means it's a long road, a long upward hill for Tim to try and get back into this title race with the remaining rounds left. But he doesn't necessarily need to take all the wins this early in the season, and good to share the love around for the CRE co-drivers.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So the last time around as well, or the lap before rather, Ryan Cox actually set a purple middle sector, and he still holds the fastest lap of the race, which is a 56.390. The top 3 on your screen at the moment, their fastest laps are about a 10th and a half apart, so they all cover, the 10th and a half covers the 3 fastest laps. Devonish 525, and Nate Liccardo 56500. So they're not doing too badly. And then we get a bit further back to Leonard Grossel and Noah Taro. So they're doing their best at the moment to try and close the margins down to the leading group of cars, which is actually about to have another lead change. So Ryan Cox is going to go through and take the lead of this race at turn number 1. So he's done that twice in 3 laps.
A bit of contact though.
Yeah, a little bit of contact from Dane Liccardo, nose to tail, and has he done that? Has he bought himself some time here? This is a game of chicken right now. Who's going to let out?
Well.
And it's Cox who gets out of the throttle and lets them have it.
Yeah, I thought he was slipping behind Dane there, but Will, obviously sensing an open opportunity, sensing a bit of blood in the water, went, yep, I'll have that back. So, I don't think the suggestion that, Will's giving positions to these guys. I think they're having to earn it off him, based on how quickly he went back for position there.
Yep, there it is. There was a little bump and run. There wasn't anything malicious in that. There was just a little bit of contact between Liccardo and Cox. And then, got to this point in the track, and Cox went, no way, fellas, I don't want to buy into this. And probably a wise call.
The other thing this will do, actually, it's slipping Cox back. If he doesn't catch back to these guys immediately, he might actually put Grossel into the glimpses of a bit of slipstream, which might bring Grossel up into this battle pack, make it a 4-car battle pack. But we're going to see how that dynamic plays out, because only 3 of them will be CRE drivers rather than all of them, as it were. But it's opened things up a little bit. Grossel's still about 2 seconds off the back of Cox, so if there's any slipstream, it's just going to be the faintest edges of the faintest wisps of air trailing off the rear wing of the ZV Commodore. But even just giving Grossel a bit of a character chase, and I suppose Taro as well, as Grossel picks up the pace.
A little bit of another battle happening here as well, with Lewis Wedding got his hands full with Lockie Locke and Phil Boakes, looking to pick up the pieces of another position here, and I think he's going to get that done. He's going to ask for some space down at turn 6, and he's got the space, and he's got the pass done. So very nice pass for Phil Boak, and pit stops are starting. Lewis Wedding's taken the bait here, and here comes the 88 into pit lane out of what was 8th place.
So the other car in the lane that we missed earlier, he has gone up down as a result, and I think he's taken his stop. But yeah, Lewis Wedding, the first of, I suppose, I wouldn't say competitive pitters, but I miss where he pitted from. But definitely the first of, I suppose, the noted pitters, the first of the lead lap pitters. There's probably a better way to phrase it without making Higo sound slow, because he was running pretty comfortably. But yeah, Lewis Wedding is in the lane, and this will be to avoid any double stacking for the Pixel crew. Because there isn't the room here to try and do a sneaky 2-wide pit stop with the narrowest lane in the Supercars calendar for this year. Means that the only option is going to be double stacking, so teams will be organising where possible, to pit on alternating laps.
Yep. Oh, actually, there was a bit of a moment there for Phil Boak to start switching the camera away. There was a moment where he went off track and ended up touring the grass, which is in the battle with Lockie Lock. So Lock has gone through. Did Boak go with him? Yes, he did. So there's some more pit activity happening as well. So in with Wedding came Brack in the number 2 machine as well. And there's some more cars coming in. So we're going to start to get a bit of an idea of where people will feed out here. And thanks to Daniel Cox Designs, we have a look at the race facts as well. So fuel burns about 3.8 litres a lap around the course of 40 laps. So you're not fuel limited in terms of getting to the end of a race. I think if you were to try and pit, you only need to put about 40 or 45 litres in to make it home if you start with a full tank. So that's not too bad. The soft and the hard tyres are available. So we expect most drivers will go with sort of around about the half distance mark for pitting and then go soft. But if a safety car came out in the early goings of a race, you could potentially put on the hard tyre and get home, but your lap time would be severely compromised. And the big interesting point there is we see Lockie Lock pitting side of the screen. How are your brakes? We spoke about that earlier in the program. The brake temperatures get very, very hot heading into turn 1. They don't get a lot of respite before you need to use them again as well. So how are your brakes, Rody? How do you like your brakes?
I enjoy them when they work. I'll put it that way. But no, I tend to be pretty good in braking across most series that I run, and that tends to be one of my strong points. But I'm just looking down the plane now. We're getting most of the runners in, and actually the issue isn't so much the double stacking. It's some cars bleeding out, other cars are bleeding in. We're actually at the moment with Ryan Cox and Lockie Lock. Cox has left his box, and Lockie's trying to get into his box, and there was just a whiff of an overlap that meant that Lock couldn't drive across the way he wanted to, and Cox couldn't get back to the fast lane the way he wanted to, so then Lock actually let out of the gas a little bit to facilitate the gap. But we saw it earlier with Leonard Russell and I think some of the Kiwi cars that pitted, but at this point Curtis Sigmar is the only car not to have pit from that sort of lead bunch, and I say that actually he's now in the lane.
He's now in the lane, which means he's going to surrender the lead to Cam Rutledge if Cam doesn't take a service this time around. And Cam is taking service this time around, and that will then cycle the lead of the race back to Will Devonish, who is literally just in for his stop. Now this is going to get chaotic, ladies and gentlemen, because there are cars absolutely everywhere on track. They're in the lane, they're on the start-finish straight, they're around the back of the circuit. So we'll need a couple of laps just to sort this out and get a handle on where everybody shakes out, because Termo is the only real driver out of position that has not stopped. And when he stops and feeds back into the traffic, that will be what we expect to see. Now Burko is the only man out of this race. Devonish has gone round to shoot the lead, and Termo's been in, and he's leaving the lane right now. So where does he feed back in, importantly? How much did he gain? He's lost out there to Ryan Cox. He's going to come out in 5th place, so he's actually made a net gain here. He's made a gain over Leonard Grossel through the stops.
Yeah, he's made a comfortable gain through Grossel.
Massive gain.
As well as Taro, who made a pretty big gain over Cox in the stop as well. He was behind Grossel before the stop, so I think maybe a bit of a faux pas for Grossel as well. Granted, Dev Series is the first time he's done a pit stop in a supercar, so perhaps just a bit of a kerfuffle there, but something you can probably work on for race 2. But no, some really good stops from the CRE guys. Tara jumping Grossel and Cox. And Egmanus as well jumping Grossel to put him up there as well. And Lockie Lock a bit of a loser actually in that as
Dane Liccardo fastest lap, so he just sets in a very quick lap there. Now I was wondering what happened to Dane Liccardo, because he'd lost a terrible amount of time through the stops. He was not that far behind Will Devonish at one stage, but now he finds himself about 3 seconds off the lead. So he's got a fair amount of work to do. So did he take a bit too much fuel on, or did he have a bit of damage to repair? Were the crew not ready? We don't quite understand that just yet.
It could be as simple as just a bit of traffic in pit lane and maybe not the optimum run into the pit lane itself, because we mentioned that could be enough to win or lose a race with the seconds, close to a second, probably a bit more that you can gain or lose from in the correct run into pit lane. So yeah, we've got a 3 second gap now to Will, but we've seen, Dane's on some pretty good pace at the moment. Obviously we saw lap record for Noah Tara there on a fresh set of soft tyres. And Will Devonish now setting fastest lap as well.
Yeah, he's responding to Dane's charge to try and get back onto his tail. So that's what that's all about. So I think everybody looks like they've all been through the lane, which is great to see. And there has actually been a lot of shaking going on throughout the order, with the pit stops shaking out. So NZ Snipes has found himself into the top 10 at the expense of Phil Boak. So that's a change that's just happened. And then you got Bailey Hall not too far behind either. He's looking to get back into the top 10. So there's a little bit to play out here in the closing 15 laps of this first race.
Yeah, no, a couple of other good performers. Like, I think Cox actually dropped a little bit. It's hard to tell actually. I was going to keep track of where Coxie, and there's two of them, where Coxie's been in this race. Yeah, where Coxie's been. But he's dropped in with Brapp, who I think actually made a bit of an improvement through his stop. Yeah, it's interesting just where the reshuffles put them, but I think crucially everybody has somebody to race with the exception of some of the guys at the front with those second gaps. Liccardo and Tara both setting sequential fastest laps there as well. They're starting to approach a 55 in race trim, which you know, not even half a tank, but half a race worth, or not quite half. But you know, less fuel in the tank, fresh soft. They're going to have some pretty good pace for the next few laps.
Well, the race record is a 56.0 in race trim as well, so we're actually not that far away. So currently it's Dane Liccardo who's down to a 56.1, so he's honing in on that record. So the qualifying lap record unfortunately did not fall. It unofficially fell in practice. It didn't fall in qualifying itself or in the shootout, so that will remain with Luke Rosella for another 12 months. But the race lap record is Will Devenish's from 2020 at a 56, I think it's 061, I think, if I remember correctly, from what was on the graphic a little bit earlier in the night. So that's still very much within reach. We're only about a tenth and a half away from it. Now, Lockie Lock actually was just off the road at turn 1 a few seconds ago, and that's now put NZ Snipes and Phil Boak and potentially Bailey Hall right on his rear boot lid, which is where he did not want them to be. And he's going to have to do some very, very aggressive defending, I think, if he has another little incident like that again.
Yeah, he will. He's opened himself up to a little bit of risk there with that. So yeah, puts Snipes and Phil Boak and Bailey Hall back into this as well. Mr. C. Bailey's still trying to recover back into the top 10 again. He had the pace in qualifying, maybe hasn't quite got there in the race, or just the gaps maybe spread a little bit. Tara nearly a lot of time on the two wheels there. We're having the tyre wear, but unfortunately he was running around on the tyres that are already overworn and it's on this track, so that won't do much to the tyre wear at all.
No, definitely not. Left-hand side tyres take a pounding through here, and he did them no favours there by putting all the weight of the car right up on top at a near 40-degree angle of the 237 Mustang. And NZ Snipes will have seen that and just sort of rubbed his hands together and gone, hee, because he's getting very close now, and he forced Lockie into a mistake there at turn 9. So Snipes was very close this time around. Probably not close enough for a stab. It'd be a bit of a demon move down here at turn 1 if he was to pull it off. But I think he's a little bit too far back in this occasion.
Yeah, just going through the battles to keep an eye on what's happening at the front. There are still seconds apart. The closest battle we've got at the moment is Leonard Russell, who's moving up on the back of Curtis Mars. They're probably about a lap or two off of that being a serious battle. There's that 8/10 the gap at this point. But yeah, it's interesting to see actually this point, cutting back through, Brendan Ross has pulled a little bit away from Lewis Wedding. They came out of the pits. Line of stern on strategy, so they pitted on differential laps, but they were probably coming in at a fairly close distance to each other. They came out a fairly close distance to each other as well. Yeah, closest battle on the track at the moment was at least actually over the last couple of spots on the grid, where Nathan Ingerson, Brenton Foley, Cheese and Cam Rutledge have been having a little scrap ever since the pit stops shook out.
Yeah, you're not wrong. They are getting pretty close, and they're still a fair bit of distance before they're going to get lapped officially as well. Now, the former Pixel cars, which is the real Holden Pixel Racing Team cars, we're going to have to find a way to shorten this, right? I don't know what we're going to do. Just like the real Pixel Commodores, that's all we're going to say. Yeah. We've done that already now. Sorry, Rossi, we're going with that. They're actually the biggest movers and shakers out of the whole race so far. Brendan Ross up 8 spots, Lewis Wedding up 6, and then the other one is Daniel Cox, who is up 6 spots as well, because he started almost right down the very back in 19th. He's now up to 13th. The people that have lost the most amount of spots at the moment, of course, Steve Burko, 8 spots, but he's unfortunately out of business. And then the other one of those that's lost 8 spots is Nathan Higginson. He started on the outside of the top 10, the bottom side of the top 10, and he's now down the bottom side of the top 20.
But no, you're right with the real cars. But yeah, if nothing else, like they may not have the outright pace for a quali run, but these guys have been around a long time. Lewis and Rossi both started racing here in, I believe, the first season 2018. So they've both had parts of the last 6 seasons to hone their craft. And look, they may not, as I said, may not have the outright car pace, but they've got the race strategy sort of worked out fairly comfortably over at Pixel. Dane Liccardo again setting a fastest lap there, and not much of a gain for him though over Will, but I'm actually looking at the timing tree. Yes, but I'm looking at the timing tree, and it does look like things are closing up a little between Noah Tara and Ryan Cox.
Starting to get interesting a bit further back for the last spot on the rostrum. And Noah Tara, has he? I think he's dropped.
I think he had an off somewhere.
Yeah, I think he's had an off because Ryan Cox has gone through. That position has changed. So Ryan Cox moves the Luke McHugh Commodore up into 3rd place. So just waiting to see the lap times. Yeah, it was in Sector 1 for Noah Tara on the previous lap. It was very poor, so I think he's been off the road and has ceded position to Cox.
And that's a shame because he had a pretty comfortable gap over Cox, and realistically, like, they are the best of the...
Turmo off the road and has ceded position to Grossel. So I just saw that happening on the monitor, that those positions had changed, and the next thing I saw was Turmo was off the road. So the pass had already been done. So Grossel had made the pass. He'd got that done. What happened to Turmo? Why was Turmo off the road? Did he come from a long way back? The car's not stopping, car's not stopping, car's not stopping. Oh, that was so close to drilling the back of the 888 Naked Super machine.
Yeah, so good work there from Turmo after having been put into that position to keep it from running straight through the back of the Super T40 wildcard car. But yeah, Grossel had already made the pass, but it does sort of diffuse their battle a little bit. That said, I think maybe Grossel sort of realised the perspective of where he's at. He's got 7 laps left. He's trying to catch Noah Tara, who he might be quicker than, but not significantly enough to maybe catch. Either or Turmo's put the skates on, because he's not quite pulling away from Turmo just yet. So these guys might end up, maybe settling on a little battle in themselves in the front at the end.
Higginson a little bit sideways moment. Now, race leader's got lap traffic, so the back end of the field is just starting to be lapped here at lap 34. So Devonish got through. Higginson was very sideways going into turn 1 and very nearly made it extremely awkward for Will Devonish to get through. So Devonish is going to wake them up. He's got Higginson. He's now getting past Thrower. He's now going to come up to the teammate Cam Rutledge. Who's not going to be causing too much of a problem. But the main issue is, what does this do for the race leaders coming through? Does it then give a bit of a swing back to Dane Liccardo? I reckon it has. I reckon there's definitely a margin that has shrunk in the last lap, because Devonish has had to navigate his way through the traffic. And he does a 57 flat on that last lap, whereas Liccardo did a 56.9, so he gained a little bit, but he didn't gain as much as what I thought he should have gained, with Devonish being caught up in traffic.
Yeah, so there is still a few cars left to process.
Higginson,
yes.
I was about to say Higginson vanished,
yep.
And I was about to say, there he is.
Yeah, he ran deep. I think he was having a battle with one of his Beyond Racing teammates, and just went a little deep at 1.
Yeah, he did. So that's the second time he's made a mistake in 2 laps at turn 1, and I think you're right. I think he was having a look at Peter Thrower. So we did say earlier in the broadcast with the team interviews how were the Commodores going to go, and he actually made a smart choice there. He was already out of control, just released the brake pedal enough to get purchase on the front steering rack, turned the car to the left to avoid drilling the Mustang, and then just took the bait and just ran off the road. So that's actually good heads-up driving. There's actually been some pretty smart driving. I haven't seen nothing terribly wrong in the opening race of the season. So this is a very, very good start to Supercars in 2023 for ASR.
Yeah, perhaps a little bit of accidental biff and barge in places where cars were, starting to threaten to go 3 wide. But for the most part, that's been very, very clean, very well put together by the drivers on the grid, and keeping it very well clean and it's very clean and tidy, which not only looks good, but also it keeps everybody's emotions in check, and it keeps the racing clean. So one of those things, in the same way the safety car will breed a safety car, dirty racing invariably tends to breed dirty racing.
Yes. And we've seen that over the course of time as well. Yes, dirty racing breeds dirty racing, supercars breed supercars. Sorry, safety cars breed safety cars. Yep. It is Friday night, I haven't had any alcohol, so that's what happens from time to time. Noah Turra. So I'm going to keep an eye on Noah Turra here because I'm keeping an eye on the gaps between himself and Ryan Cox because they've been sort of keeping themselves, in good step. About 10th swing one way, 10th swing the other. Nothing too terrible. What is this time around? It's sort of come down a little bit again. So Turra with a 56.7 and Ryan Cox, I think, was in about a similar lap time last time around. And live timing, unfortunately, is about 30 seconds behind, which is a little bit unusual. It's normally not that sort of far behind, so we are waiting for a lot of these lap times to shake out, probably about 30 seconds after they have actually occurred. So the podium as it sits right now, with a couple of laps to go, Will Devonish, Dane Liccardo, Ryan Cox, but most of the battles I think that we're looking at, I think most of the battles have sort of been settled, I think, except for 13th, 14th, 15th row.
Realistically, yeah, it's sort of about where we're checking out. There's
12th actually, I should say it's 12th on back.
Yeah, there's some closeness further up where if someone makes a mistake, the positions are going to open up, but definitely in terms of stuff that a driver can influence for themselves to advantage to move themselves up the order, yeah, the start of that battle is 12th, where perhaps there's only a miniature train, not quite the full freight train that we had from Burko, but a bit more of a V-line, or maybe a Papa tourist train, something a little bit shorter. But yeah, he's got Lockie Lock, Pete Thrower, and Daniel Cox tucked in behind. They're going to be pretty safe. They do have Will Devonish moving in the background, but the last car he's going to end up lapping in this race will be Foley, who is 4 seconds off the back of Cox. So I don't think they're going to be impeded or influenced by the leaders, sorry. But yeah, Brad's trying to trying to build a bit of a margin from these guys behind. And yeah, a good showing from Brad. Maybe not quite the pace we've seen from the other two wildcards, but Brad was the one of the three wildcards that didn't score podiums at in Super 2 last time out. The first time out last week. Right. So, pretty good running still to be just on the back end of the top 10, or just outside the top 10. It's a solid drive and a clean drive. I think that's the most important thing for Brap. It's his first main game start, and he's done himself fine service. He's kept it clean, kept it tidy. Oh, he's got a little bit of a touch-up there from Lockie Lock. Did he miss a gear? I'm wondering if Brap... Oh, and there's some contact late there as well between Daniel Cox and Brap as well. So I've got a funny feeling that, either he's run out of fuel or he's missed a gear change or was in the wrong gear or something happened there, because that's heartbreak. So he was doing so well up until that point, and unfortunately he's lost it all. I'm not 100% what happened there, but yeah, the car definitely bogged out of the corner. It massively bogged, and I don't think that Lockie Lock was expecting it, because the next thing was the front bumper of the Mustang was in the rear bumper of the Commodore. Yeah, so that went from what was a pretty handy little lead, and it just all faded away just in that moment. He's only lost probably a second, maybe a bit over a second, but it's cost him 2 spots with the tightness of the racing down the back here. So yeah, I think the way that the two in front of him are going, they're sort of pulling away. I'm not sure he's got maybe even the tyre life and nothing else at the back end of the race to try and charge back in to get 12th. So I think his biggest challenge is to be dealing with Cox at the back of this race. Now Foley's just made a mistake at turn number 6. He was holding on for dear life to avoid being lapped. He hasn't been able to resist the charges of Will Devonish, who has led the majority of the laps. He had a bit of a fight early on with Dane Liccardo and Ryan Cox, but if that's something to look forward to in 2023, I'm all for it. So Will Devonish takes the opening race of the 2023 campaign in little over 39 minutes and 40 laps of racing. With Dane Liccardo second, he'll be very, very pleased with that, and he'll be pleased with the fact that he managed to lead a couple of laps in there as well. 2.7 seconds adrift at the checkered flag. And a rookie on debut, a substitute on debut, Ryan Cox. Welcome to the ASR Supercars podium with a 3rd place finish. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, really good run for Ryan Cox. A really good run for all the podium sitters. And actually, even to the guys that were almost there. So Noah Turra 2/10 off in 4th place. Very good solid run for Noah in his first sort of registered full-time main game run. Lennox Russell ends up 5th after being tipped out early. So good recovery there from Russell Desaga, top 5 in the 888 guest car. Termo, or Kursik Manus, as we're now knowing him, comes home in 6th. Solid run there, maybe couldn't quite run with Leonard at the back end, but still a good run, 4 points in the team's title. And rounding out the rest of the top 10, we've got the 2 pixel cars of Brendan Ross and Lewis Wedding. Bailey Hall, strong recovery in the end to get home to 9th. Actually, a race at the end there with Lewis Wedding looking like a gap of 0.3 of a second. So perhaps Bailey got to him just a bit too late.
That's a major recovery drive from Bailey.
Yes, strong recovery drive. And then the last spot is
NZ
the
Snipes.
lead. Actually, I think the lead Kiwi in NZ Snipes.
He is the lead Kiwi, NZ Snipes, so he gets the 420 Mustang up into 10th place. So that's a really good showing there. So Phil Boak misses out on the top 10 on his return debut, but finishes in 11th ahead of Lockie Lock and Peter Thrower. Brapp and Daniel Cox, the last two, were on the lead lap, and then Foley, Rutledge, Cheese and Higginson rounding out the rest of the classified finishers. Steve Burko, the only non-finisher from race number 1. So what a great start. What a great start to the season for ASR Supercars. As all the cars going back to the lane, we'll await the podium sitters to come and have a bit of a chat with us, Rody. Fairly good start to proceedings.
Yeah, as we mentioned during the race, a very clean start, which we love to see, and we've obviously got history around Calder, more I suppose for Dev Series and Supercars, and even we saw this last week with Dev Series. Things are a little messy. There's a second race to go, and to be fair, it was the last race of the night where things came a cropper for Dev Series. So, we're not counting our chickens just yet, but no, for what we saw, very, very good running. And, as we said, there's going to be some very tight running across the season. And it panned out in the race. It didn't quite pan out for the full length of the race. Strategies and little miscues in driving and everything played out. And I think the strategy window to the pit stop was really the biggest shaker of positions. But still had some good battles for the guys further back, which sort of kept them in the hunt. And for the guys at the front, obviously, a chance to go for fastest laps, get some good teams points and some good drivers points out of the first race of the season.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Some good points and some good driving overall in the standings there. As we welcome you into the Beyond Electrical podium presentations for race number 1 of Supercars 2023 for ASR. And who will we start with, Rody? Will we start at the top? Will we start at the bottom? Will we start in the middle? We've never started in the middle before.
You know what? Yeah, something different. We'll start in the middle. Dane Liccardo. You've mentioned to us at the start of the season, we mentioned it in the broadcast, it's probably going to be the running theme for this year, that you still believe you should be running in Super 2. I think after the performance so far tonight, you can kind of put those suggestions to bed.
They're still going to keep going just despite you, Rody, but yeah, definitely, yeah. That was more of a team effort than anything, I'll give it that.
Yeah, well, we say team effort, but we saw the racing on track. There was definitely didn't look like there was any easy positions to be made from the 3 or 4 of you at the top end of the tree. But for yourself, Dane, a good run. You obviously led a few laps there in the first stint before the pit stop, but couldn't quite run with Will in the second half of the race. But still, a very good run.
Yeah, the first half was just try and get the tires to last and see how long we can get them. The second stint was, Will got out quicker than me, and I just wanted to catch him. And I think we were all trading fastest laps, me, Will, and Noah at one point in that second stint. But yeah, after that, it was just to maintain second and bring home on the podium.
Yeah, so it'll be good points for yourself as a driver, but also a good buy-in for yourself and Steve Burko for the teams, and that sort of helps balance out what happened to Burko there in that first race. How are you feeling coming into race 2?
Just trying to keep the nerves down, really, eh?
That does help. Good running there in that first race, Dane. First race of the year, your first podium, and that win's getting ever closer. But podium for race 1 tonight, and hopefully just as good again in race 2.
That's the plan.
Alrighty, we're going to swing over now to the guest driver for CRE tonight in Ryan Cox, who but a week ago was in the development series as not the fastest driver in the Dev Series entrance list. I have a feeling Supercars maybe is a bit more of your style, Ryan, than the Dev Series based on your pace tonight.
Oh, it was just I had a lot of fun tonight, and I'm glad I got this opportunity to start there. But love this track as well. I'm just really enjoying myself. No expectations, but I'm extremely pleased with that. So it's a lovely start.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I imagine you've had team owner and driver you're replacing Ben Hall in the chat. Very, very, very keen to see his car at the front. And yeah, as we mentioned, it's very good running. You also had a couple of laps at the lead there. Obviously, you and Dane getting some good racing on between the pair of you, with Will kind of sitting back and letting you guys get the racing on early on. But yeah, how was it? How did it feel to be leading a Supercars race in your first time out?
It was pretty cool. I was just trying to keep it clean. I didn't want to obviously take anyone out, and I've been pretty nervous being my first time doing this, and I made some rookie errors with pit stops as well in that race. I'm not quite sure what I've done wrong there to keep myself in the box for so long, but I'll look back on it and work it out. I'm not sure I'll be able to do that for race 2, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it could be as simple sometimes as just maybe not queuing or ordering the pit stop in time for the crew to get out. But still, a couple of rookie errors, but you're going to get that with your first time in the Supercars. Only a couple of months after you made your debut in the Dev Series last year. Obviously back in the car again for race 2. You said 0 expectations, but what's your thoughts going into it?
I'm aiming for another podium with the pace we've got at the moment. Hopefully get a better start than last time and keep it clean. I need to look after the tyres a bit more than I did in that first race. I didn't quite understand how tight it would be. But yeah, that's the plan for the second. We'll see how we go. Looking forward to it.
Very good. Well, great work by yourself, Ryan Cox, and we'll probably see you up the pointy end again in race 2, but good luck.
Thank you very much.
And finally, the first winner of the 2023 Supercars season is Will Devonish. And Will, I wouldn't quite say you had an easy run of things, but definitely a bit more comfortable than some of the earlier, so that's some of the starts of the seasons you've had previously.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of 2 years ago, starting at Adelaide, having a win. So hopefully the year turns out a bit better than that. But yeah, it was a good race. We were pinching brakes here and there, which we weren't doing in practice. So I need to sort that out for race 2. But aside from that, I'm pretty happy with the performance, and I couldn't be prouder of Dane getting up there. He's worked hard, and absolutely fantastic for him to be up here.
Absolutely. And look, we talked about Serie a few times. There was a point there, I think you had all but one driver in the top 10 in practice, and you had a pretty strong run for the team as a whole in the action so far tonight. It's obviously a distant picture in your mind of the three. Obviously, drivers and teams is probably more of the focus, but good, strong first performance in the battle you guys have with Beyond Racing.
Yes. I mean, it's a shame that Tim wasn't able to rock up tonight. I think it'd be a 4-car battle at the front if he was here. But yeah, being ahead of them, it's a great feeling. But they're also a great team to race with, so there's no hard feelings between the two of us, obviously. So yeah, we're just happy to have the two big teams being able to battle fairly against each other. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're not far off getting ready for race 2, so we'll let you get back to the car and get things set up again for race 2. But great run there in the first race, Will. It's a good start to the championship for you in 2023.
Thank you.
Alrighty, now that's been our podium sitters for race 1.
Sure has. Thanks very much, Rhodey. Been great to have a quick chat with our drivers from the Beyond Electrical podium for race number 1 this evening. And what we're going to do is take a very short break here in Central Commentary. And on the other side of this, we will get ready for a very special milestone here in ASR Supercars when we tackle race 2 at Calder Park. Don't go anywhere. The 2023 ASR Supercars Championship is proudly supported in Australia by Cam Rutledge Electrical, licensed electrical contractor in Nowra, New South Wales. And in New Zealand by Beyond Electrical, specialists for domestic, commercial and industrial installation and maintenance throughout Auckland and the surrounding area. The ASR team would also like to thank
PRD Automotive, and Daniel Cox Designs for their contributions to the community, both financially and time-wise. Finally, without naming names, the ASR team would like to thank several individuals stepping up in 2023 to help drive the community forward with several initiatives such as social media, web content, and other projects. We couldn't do it without you, and thank you for willingly providing your time and creativity this year.
Welcome back to ASR Supercars 2023, ladies and gentlemen. What a great start we've had to the season. So Will Devenish was probably one of the red-hot favourites to take out this year's title with a bunch of changes that went on in the off-season with drivers not being able to make it or return to the fold, and the absence of both of the two champions from the last 2 years probably puts him, I guess, in prime position, Rhodey. But if tonight's anything to go by with race one, it's not going to be easy for him. Far from it.
No, and you think, oh, the guys who's racing are his teammates, they'll play easy on him. No, we saw that in race 1. They may all have a communal setup pool. They may all be working together on their strategy, but when it comes down to it in a race scenario, they're no longer friends.
No.
Especially in the case of Cox, where maybe he's trying to impress some people, and I wouldn't be surprised if CRE are one of the teams that start ringing him up at the end of tonight, if there's potential that he might be on the move to Supercars this year. There is a second spot in the technically in the lineup where the Luke McHugh racing car currently is. There's only one car in that garage rather than 2 for everybody else. So we're liable to see that one pop up at some point in the season. So I'm not sure where he goes there, whether we see Surrey's Esports make some involvement, or perhaps a collaborative effort between the two teams. Even then, he's not trying to butter anyone's bread. He's out there just to do his own racing, and it's really good to see. By all means, there's still some perfectly fair and legit racing out there. Nobody's going out there, drilling people off the track for position. They're just not opening the door for each other either. They're making each other earn the position, and that's making all of them better racers.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with exactly just what you have said. I couldn't have said it any better. And on top of that, it just looks like they're enjoying their racing some more. I don't know what's changed in the last sort of couple of months, but it just looks like everybody out in front and throughout the whole entire field tonight, even the ones that were battling up the front with Will or battling in the middle of the pack, they all just seem to have not so much found another gear, but the nerves have just calmed. Everybody's done this before now, so there wasn't any friendly fire, there wasn't any contact or major contact. It was a great start to the season, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
So it's really good to see, and it's also getting the field into a good stead as to sort of this is where the racing is going to be going this year. This is sort of, I suppose, if nothing else, what's expected, being that this is the title series for ASR. This is the sort of driving I like to see across the year. Obviously, there'll be different styles of racing. It'll play a little differently in Dev Series where some of the pace brackets sit sort of up and down the field. Then we go into GD3, which is not far off of kicking off either, and there's some differential pace brackets there as well. We have also got coming on Sunday the ASR special event, the Australian Grand Prix using the 2006 cars. I don't think we'll see too much wheel-to-wheel racing there in a touring car sense, being that they're F1 cars, and I know that, at least for myself, I've got the fastest car and I'm definitely the slowest driver, so that'll play out very nicely. But I think I'm comfortably slower than what my car can cover up for. But and then we're not far off having the first social series kicking off as well, which will be with the Toyota 86 series cars. And we've seen how those race IRL. There were, I think, in the wet at Bathurst last year, they were pretty mental. Even in the dry, where they're normally meant to be racing, they're still going 2 or 3 wide around street circuits where they probably really don't fit. So it sort of sets the standard for the racing we kind of want to see at ASR. And I think if people are coming into ASR and need to see, want to see what we're all about, first race is a very good place to start to see what we're looking for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And when I look at what we've got ahead for the next sort of for the next couple of months and that as well, I'm looking forward to everything. And just coming back to what you were talking about a few moments ago with the ASR Australian Grand Prix, which is a full-length Formula One Grand Prix this weekend in 2006 spec cars. Lewis Wedding's going to be hosting those broadcasts over on the Loose Sim Network, but all going according to plan. He's going to have a very special guest in the commentary box this weekend. Now, I'm not going to say who it is. I don't want to spoil the surprise. You know who I'm referring to. But and we were hoping that these guys were going to be able to put something together. They weren't able to, but one of them is very graciously going to step up and commentate with Lewis Wedding. So tune into those broadcasts, because it's someone that's been here at ASR before and has done quite a lot of commentary in the early going. We haven't seen him for a while, so it's going to be very, very I'm going to be on edge, just waiting to hear him belt out some tunes, because I put him up there as one of the best broadcasters that ASR's had in some time, and haven't seen enough of him in the last sort of couple of years for other reasons. But we'll let that one go. All right, so practice session has gone zeros here. The last few laps are just being concluded, and we are about to get ready to go for race number 2 in just a few moments' time.
So we have been keeping a track of, thanks to Bailey Hall, who is actually running Unpaid Meter Outlet. I've kind of outed him a little bit there, but you'll notice as you start to go through the posts, he had to put up a poll today for the ASR community on who they thought the winner's going to be. Unsurprisingly, Will Devonish with the highest vote both times out, although not with 50% this time around. So there's a bit better spread of votes for race 2. But I think you're gonna be hard to go past Will again for race 2. Progressive grids, so it's sort of, and yeah, we're starting to see perhaps a more representative rollout for the grid with what matches up with race pace as a result of the grid being set by race pace.
It certainly is, and it's a progressive grid. If you were just tuning in a bit late here, qualifying and top 10 shootout set the grid for race 1. Race 2's results, race 2's grid is dependent on the race 1 results. So it's a little bit mixed up. And here we go for race 2 this evening as the grid rolls off. Ready?
Yep, we'll get through this nice and quickly this time. Starting off of pole, again, is Will Devonish for Series Engineering. Leading driver now in the driver's points, which we will talk about later. Second is Dane Liccardo for Series Performance Racing. He's going to be happy to go for that win. He knows he can get there at least tonight and definitely looking at it this season. Third is Ryan Cox. We talked to him already. Zero expectations, but he's going to be pushing it for Luke McHugh Racing. Fourth is Noah Turra, the first to be amped up racing by CRE entries, with Leonard Grossel in 5th, the Super Cheap Auto Racing guest entry. 6th is Curtis Sigmanis for Sierra Engineering, the second of those 2 cars, with Brennan Ross first to the real Holden Pixel Racing Team cars in 7th, with his teammate in 8th. Thanks for the flash, fellas. 9th is Bailey Hall for Beyond Racing Young Guns, the fastest of the 2 on the grid, or highest of the 2 on the grid, with Ender Snipes in 10th. 11th is Phil Boak for EF Motorsport. Good run for him in that first race. Lockie Lock in second to the amped up racing cars. 13th is Peter Thrower for Beyond Racing with Pratt in 14th, the first of the PBF France Engineering entries. 15th is Daniel Cox for Sierra Anson Motorsports, the first of those 2 cars, with Foley behind for the second PBF France Engineering entry. 17th is Cam Rutledge for Sierra Anson Motorsport with Cheese in 18th for the Team Tanafer division. 19th is Higginson, the second of the Beyond Racing Young Guns, and 20th, after losing a wheel on a bonnet at the early stages of race 1, is Steve Burke of Series Performance Racing, making a 20-car grid for race 2.
Certainly is. Cars getting into position here for the start of this race, as everyone just waiting on 1 or 2 drivers just to finish lining up, and I think we are going to be good to go in just a few seconds' time. There's just 1 car that's just slightly out of position. I think it's Daniel Cox just in the background, a shot there, just trying to get himself together. And come on, Coxie, you can do it. He'll be put into position in a minute by the game if he's not too careful. You can just see him in the back of the shot, just above the gantry, just trying to find his box. He needs to come a bit further forward, Here we go. Rightio, it's a very special event here in ASR Supercars. Not only is it race 2 of the championship, it's race number 100 in ASR Supercars, and the Milestone men are on their way towards turn number 1 for the first time here in race number 2 this evening. And it's 3 wide, nearly 4 wide. Settle down, fellas. It's only lap 1 as we head towards turn 1. Who's going to pop out with the lead? It's going to be Dane Liccardo by the looks of things. It looks like he's got one over Will Devonish at the start. His starts have been better for the 2 races this evening, Will Devonish, but he didn't get the best start that time. He slots into second place behind the CRE Performance Racing Commodore.
Yeah, Liccardo nearly got in a bit of assistance into a spin through turn 1 from Noah Turra, who's currently running in 3rd ahead of Ryan Cox, and a big train of cars led by Lewis Wedding. He's actually gone for a move on Ryan Cox into the corner, but he's actually backed because he did kind of door him on the way through. You can have another crack at that pass a little later in the race, but solid run, and both of the cars actually only in or on the back end of the top 5 as we finish the first lap of racing.
Yeah, Ross in 6th, Wedding in 5th. They've made some good ground here as well as they head up the front straight here. They fan out a few bit wide. Dane Liccardo's lost the lead of the race. Devonish went straight back to the lead of the race at turn number 6, and the real Holden Pixel cars are getting their block on here, keeping Termo and Grossel at bay. Then come the 2 PBF Race Engineering Commodores with Foley ahead of Brapp. So in the early going here, it's I guess the second verse, same as the first. There's a little group of cars out in front, Liccardo and Devonish kicking away, and then Noah Turra has managed to get the best of Ryan Cox in the early going. He then leads another group of cars heading down towards turn 6. I think Grossel was potentially having a bit of a look at Egmanis heading down into turn 6, and he hasn't been able to make it stick though.
Oh, he's having another crack now at the last corner, but Gemma's going to better run around the outside, I would imagine. Bit of slipstream perhaps from Lewis Wedding, but he's shuffled back in front, and actually now some Monza Snake he's going down the front straight as the cars behind Lewis Wedding are all trying to pick up slipstream off of each other and off of Lewis.
Well, here comes Egmanis. He's actually got a really good run on Wedding. He's got the outside. He's going to need to wrap right around the outside here, and he's not been able to stay on the road, so he's going to lose about 4 spots here. There goes Brapp, there goes Snipes. I think Bailey Hall will get this one as well. He will, and Turmo is trying to find a way to feed back on the circuit. He nearly threw it away. He turned it really hard into turn 2, and the back end got away from him, and he had to catch it.
Yeah, but you can see the anger in the energy of the car trying to get that rejoin back on. That was obviously not the plan at all for Turmo. He's fighting for.
Oh, and he's off the road again. He's off the road again.
12th, and he's going to slip probably further back again. Probably actually. Oh, Lucky Lock will get past him into the hairpin.
Yeah, he'll get him into turn 9. So very untidy lap for the driver of the 51 CRE Mustang, and he's lost a pile of positions out of that. So, and up the front too, here we go again. The podium sitter from race number 1 in Ryan Cox feeds the number 21 Luke McHugh Commodore back down the inside of Noah Turra at turn number 1. That's been his favourite passing spot tonight, and he gets that one done on lap 4.
Yeah, that was a very well executed pass on Noah Turra. Both relatively young guns, as we've mentioned. Noah with a bit more race experience, at least in ASR, compared to Cox. But yeah, whether Cox is a natural or he's come in with a bit of experience prior, he's been doing a pretty good job. And yeah, very effective pass, which puts him onto the podium. Still, a couple of seconds off the back of the leader of this race, which has Will Devonish checked out by about a second over Dan Liccardo at the moment.
Turmo's fallen further through the order. He's now down to 14th, gone down behind Daniel Cox, I think, as well. The timing's just not quite updating enough at the moment, so there's a little bit still to pan out. There's Cox, there's Turmo going through, and then Higginson making his way up as well.
I've just noticed as well, actually, I'll go back and find out what happened, but I just noticed, thanks to Jesse in the chat, that we have lost Cam Rutledge early on as well.
Yeah, that's extremely early. He was out after 2 laps, so I'm wondering whether he's had either a hardware failure or something's gone on there. You might have to fill me in on that one, Roddy. That's a little bit too far back for things. So that's an interesting argument. Cam Rutledge has finished almost every race as far back as I can remember, so that's a very unusual DNF for him. Pass being moved and made in the back of shot here. Is that NZ Snipes? I think I was just looking in the back. Did he get the move done on Foley? No, he did, but he was very close. So Grossel now keeping Lewis Wedding very entertained at the moment. Well, for Lewis it won't be entertaining, it'll be frightening. But Grossel has got a turn of speed on here at the moment, very seriously threatening the number 88 Real Pixel Commodore down into turn number 1 here. Has a bit of a look, thinks better of it, but he's feigned Lewis into a mistake, and that's precisely what Grossel wanted. He thought about making the move, he worried Lewis out of the position, and that's going to cost Wedding about half a dozen spots. He's going to come back on. Where is he in the running order? It's updated. He's updated in 13th, so he's gone from 6th to 13th. That cost him 7 spots.
Yeah. Quick update on Cam. He's actually put it in the chat about the same time I went and found it. I couldn't tell if it was a throttle issue or it was an blind engine, but he has confirmed it was the latter. It wasn't even a hard downshift from what he said at turn 1, but it must have just pipped above the kill point just even for a split second or something in there. But in the end, after only 2 laps, the CRE going to need a new engine for that Commodore. But fastest lap set in quick succession there by Will and then by Dane Liccardo. I missed tracking what that was, but already is starting to put in some quick laps.
Yeah, we're starting pumping quick laps. And for Cam Rutledge, that's a car that sat on the sidelines last year because they did run the Mustang across all the CRE entries last year. So I don't think they've done all the weather. Turmo's thrown it off the road as well. So all the CRE cars are in the wars at the moment, or a good chunk of them are in the wars. They're either being beaten black and blue by a number of cars going past them, hip and shouldering, or they're falling off the road of their own volition. Termo's just given up position 12 to Lewis Wedding.
Yeah, I was just thinking through actually the intriguing point in terms of this teams battle we talked about earlier, CRE and beyond. Looking at it, you'd go, oh yeah, CRE are pretty comfortable with who's running where, but the important thing to note is that there is 3 cars from CRE that do not count towards this team's battle. It is the Mickey Racing car, which will be Van Hall, is currently Ryan Cox, so Ryan Cox does nothing for their battle. Same with Noah Tara, and same with Lockie Lock, because it's Will Devonish, I believe, at least I have to double check, but I believe the 6 drivers are Will Devonish, Curtis Amano / Termo, Cam Rutledge, Daniel Cox, Dan Liccardo and Steve Burko. And if that is the case, it's not quite out of reach for beyond just get obviously a lot of points off throughout the season, but it's not quite as much of a free kick for CRE as it might look. I've been just interesting little tidbit there for that battle.
Just keeping an eye on that as well with Steve Burko. He's actually hasn't actually made too much ground, unfortunately, at the start here. He's still last of the classified starters. He's gained 1 spot by virtue of Cam Rutledge's DNF, but I don't know, is he trying something a little bit different with regards to the strategy? He hasn't made any major impressions. He's not driving under any pressure. He's going to pick up a spot here because Pete Thrower's gone off the road in turn 6, so that's an easy pass for Steve Burko and the Builders traffic management Commodore. But I don't know, Reddy, what do you reckon? What do you reckon the number 7's up to right now?
Oh, I just went to have a look just to double check, because the special on the pace led me to believe that maybe there was some old strategy playing out, but he is still on the soft, so I can visually confirm that.
58s though, that's the only thing that sort of gets me. He's doing 58 flat last time around, which is not, compared to some of the other drivers around him, not exactly slow, just not as fast as some of the other guys that are out in front doing 56s, that's all. So he's doing a steady pace. I don't know whether this is, as I say, he's playing a long-term game here, maybe to have some sort of do a shorter stop and then have, trying to use the tyres toward the end. That's the bit I'm sort of a little bit unsure about right now.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of tyre saving to only exchange less tyres in the stop or something, I don't know, but yeah, I will see how that plays out. It could be maybe a bit of a fuel run that your stop is only the length of the tyres rather than being the length of the fuel. So I imagine the fuel is a little longer than the tyres. So yeah, maybe just trying to minimise that stop time, because we saw how much that impacted race 1. He still needs to be in range of the cars to pass to actually gain an advantage in doing so. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. So yellow flag down turn 1.
Yep.
So I think who that is.
Yeah, there was a car off the road. I think it is Bailey Hall. Yes, it is Bailey Hall off the road, just getting back a shot there. So he's run deep in turn 1, coughed up a bunch of spots while we were keeping an eye on the train.
Well,
occupying
Lockie Lock.
Lockie Lock, he was around. So yeah, so he's gone around and having to recover. So not a great night for him. What's happened to the 237 machine? So Bailey Hall was off the road. Lockie Lock picked up that position ahead of Wedding and Termo. And then what happened after he just lighted up on the exit, I think. Yeah, he's dropped the tyre in the grass and around he's gone. So that's pretty much self-inflicted there for Lockie Lock.
Yeah, and I think he's might be planning on stopping maybe at some point soon. Or at least playing. I did see him. I don't know his pit menu, but yeah, I suppose a good place if you're comfortable on. You're definitely comfortable on fuel. I suppose you're comfortable on tyres if you put on hards, but maybe some alternate strategy work going in at the down the CRE team garages.
I think so. I think the men on the pit wall will be furiously calculating what they're going to do now. They've got a whole bunch of cars out of position. So for Lockie Lock and Noah Tara, that really doesn't make too much of a difference to them. But for the cars that are a bit closer together, it does cause a little bit of a headache. This battle's still going on. Cheese very much glued to the rear wing of Daniel Cox here. He's been here for several laps now. Bailey Hall trying to recover through the field. He's managed to just pop himself ahead of Phil Boak and Peter Thrower. As we said, battles all the way down the field. Same as last race, battles up and down the field as far as the eye can see. Everybody's sort of found somebody. What they all don't have is, according to Queen, somebody to love. That's probably the only thing they don't have right now. Oh, geez, going for a move around the far outside on Daniel Cox. That's game. He hasn't been able to pull it off, though, but I like the thinking. As Higginson's off the road, are they going to get a spot here?
Oh, yeah, they will.
Hey, well, he's off the road. He's done a Lockie Lock on the other side of the road, Higginson. So that's a free kick to Cox to Cheese to Bailey Hall to Boak and a thrower. And to Burko as well.
To Burko, yeah, and actually given Lockie Lock a bit of a sniff in as well. But
and that's Steve Warwick said in the chat a couple of laps ago. You know, it doesn't take much to lose spots on such a short lap, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, just coming back into the battle now with Cheese and Cox. Good little battle there. Bailey has now brought into that as well. So that's going to be a 3-car battle. There's also just in front of them as well, Joseph Marnus or Termo and Lewis Wedding having a good little battle as well. Termo had got the pass done, but sort of threw it away in the next corner, and Lewis, wise out of those.
There's been another exchange as well, and Lewis has gone deep at turn 1 immediately, as you said that, Ruddy. So the roles have been completely reversed the other way around yet again.
But they've been having a good little ding-dong battle for the last couple of laps. Sort of, I think Termo's just trying to cover up past Lewis, who's maybe slipping a little bit. As we mentioned, the race pace isn't necessarily quite with the Pixel cars. That said, Brendan Ross running quite comfortably up in 6th ahead of Foley, who actually, I was surprised a bit that was Foley in 7th, so he's maybe found his race pace as well. But it maybe not quite the race pace for the Pixel guys, but we, as you mentioned, strategy kind of plays their way a little bit. Brendan Ross,
slow. I'm not sure what happened there. Snipes just went past him as if Ross was standing still on the front straight. I'm not sure if he missed a gear or double shifted or something, but
I caught it. He caught the rear out of the last corner on the grass. Got perpendicular to the track 90 degrees. Slowed across the inside. Actually nicked the inside wall all the way through for good measure.
Yeah, he locked it coming in. Here we go. And you're right. Yeah. Yep, there it is. Left rear on the grass. Oh dear. And he got a bunch
of time to both Foley and then
Snipes
through as well.
Yeah, so that's why it looked like Snipes was going past him like he was standing still, because he had a full head of steam, and Ross just had no top end speed because he was recovering. So bit of a disaster there for Pixel. Just what happens, isn't it, here in ASR, isn't it? Every time we talk somebody up, they inevitably screw up.
Yeah, the commentator's curse is still alive and strong this year.
Well, I think it's strong it always seems to be stronger in the virtual world than it does in the real world, although I've had my fair share of doing that in the Victorian State Race Series, calling talking someone up and then inevitably having them, promptly run off the road. So Brendan Ross is going to settle back into 8th place here behind Snipes. He's actually having a pretty good run. I mean, he was holding his own in 8th or 9th place. He's up 1 or 2 spots. He's got another one here. So lead Kiwi at the moment. Probably one of his better rounds, I would say, at the moment. Top 10 finish in the last race, comfortably in the top 10 at the moment.
Yeah, at least it's his career as a whole within Supercars. He's definitely one of the better runs he's had so far. He has had some strong performances, and it wasn't so much Snipes necessarily was penciled to be, probably at least on a pure drive perspective, was probably penciled to be the second quickest of the Kiwi drivers. Although to be fair, you'd have to include Bailey Hall into that mix as well. To be fair, Bailey's had some good pace. He just maybe hasn't quite held together for a race strategy with him down in 15th at the moment, battling with Cheese. Snipes probably the second quickest. He's got the experience. He's running in Supercars. He's been commentating Dev Series. This is now his second year, I believe, commentating Dev Series. And obviously he and Lewis kicked that off last Friday night, and they did a pretty good job from what I heard. But he's got the experience to sit there and compare notes between what he sees in racing and what he sees behind the wheel as well, to sort of compare what feels fast versus what actually is fast, and those sort of things. And to be fair, we've actually got the ability to make the comparison as well. I've been running the Dev Series the last couple of years, and you've got yourself a field position for the Dev Series as well for the next few rounds aboard one of the Super 3 FG Falcons. So we'll actually have some. We'll actually be able to talk as if we know what the race drivers are doing, because we are actually both going to be race drivers for the first probably 4 or 5 rounds of the season. Yeah,
been a little while since I've been into the development series. I sort of moonlighted a bit in the last couple of years, just filling in here or there after being run up the arse one too many times and getting upset with it. But no, happy to be filling in for Glenn Miles. He's unfortunately had his GPU die, so I'm sort of in the car for as long as he is out and partnering with Ryan Walsh. And then when Glenn's back in the position to race, then I'll very graciously step aside and let him have the seat back. I'm just actually happy just to be doing a little bit of driving and not putting too much practice into it, not sweating it like a number of people have in the past, but just enjoying racing. I think that's what a lot of people are looking forward to this year. It's a bit of a different demeanour. I think a few people have approached it a little bit differently, and they're just wanting to enjoy themselves. And that's all we can ask for.
Absolutely, and that's the end of the day. I mean, nobody's doing this for any sort of big prize money. There's there's no contracts coming out at the end of the year. I mean, to be fair, I know that John McDonald and I in Dev Series have had consternations about contracts that do or don't exist, but there's no actual exchange of money or sponsorship or anything of the sort. It's just getting together and racing some pixel cars, and that's the idea. At the end of the day, you want to make sure you're enjoying your racing.
Absolutely. Game of chicken going on here at 275 k's an hour into turn 1 between Termo and Lewis, winning for about the 6th time. Raptors keeping and watching brief at the moment, and Termo has the high ground this time round. Takes position through turns 2 and 3, and now sets off toward the flip-flop. And Brad's been doing a pretty good job in here as well, just sort of on the fringes of the top 10. He's been mixing it up, taking advantage of the mistakes, not doing anything silly, which remarked in the last race was a very solid drive and a very measured and competent drive, and just brought home the points. That was the important thing. He brought home the points.
Yeah, and he's doing a good job filling in for Zach Brown. I know there was discussions. Oh, I've had to go and say it.
And there you go. And off he goes, and Brett is off the road, just in the back of shot there at turn 9, and he's going to get swallowed here, I fear, from Cox. He's trying to take the defensive line, but that's going to be in vain for the driver of the number 2 PBF Commodore, as Daniel Cox goes through in the 94. There goes Phil Boak, and Pete Thrower's just not quite close enough to snaffle another spot away from the Commodore pilot.
I apologise profusely to the PBF Engineering team and to Brad for my comments there. But up until that point, he was doing a good job filling in for Zach Brown. There was discussions earlier that with Leonard becoming available again, he was actually scheduled to drive Dane's car before a couple of things in Dane's life aligned that he could attend tonight, and he was quite keen to, with it being the only soft tyre shootout of the year. But there was discussions of maybe we put Leonard in the car and look based off Leonard's pace. Maybe that would have been a better move, but perhaps had a really solid run. He is in the pits now, but he's one lap before the pit window, so I think this has worked out pretty well for him to actually be reasonable pit. He might be a little longer, maybe some damage to repair, but not too impacted overall for his race strategy.
He's the second man to pit. Bailey Hall was the first, who's already gone a lap down. You can see on the timing screens on the left-hand side there, he's gone a lap down already. We're going back to the battle for third place as well, because Ryan Cox has been catching Noah Tara. It flipped the other way at the start, so Cox was in front. Tara managed to wrestle it away from him. There goes Cox in the lane now, so there's an undercut potentially being affected here if Cox can get the in-lap right. Now, Tara's got to put the foot down, and then he's got to basically do the inverse. He's got to get in on the next lap.
Yeah, so, Brap as well, going a lap down from pitting. And yeah, we're starting to get into the pit window now, so the next probably lap or two, it's going to be starting to be pretty frantic. We'll see a lot of the lead runners will probably pick the front car, or not necessarily the front car, but they'll pick one of the team cars to run into the lane. For example, Ross is the Pixel car in the lane. He was the lead of the two on the track, and just looking further back, Pete Thrower's also in the lane. I think he's the only Beyond Racing car tonight, Tim Redmond being his teammate for the season, so he can pit at his leisure. But yeah, a couple of guys in this lap through.
Race leader. Race leader
as we come through now.
Yeah, race leaders now come in as well. So that's and Dane Liccardo along with him. So mirroring what Will Devonish is doing. So that's an interesting sort of point here. And Noah Tara as well. So he's called it perfectly. So he's seen Cox pit. He now needs to get in and get that job done. He has no choice. Where is Ryan Cox? Cox is actually, believe it or not, Cox is only just leaving the lane now. That's how the pitting works here. This is why this lane is so long, and why you go a lap down is because, look at that. So at the minute that Cox is leaving the lane, Noah Tara's just put the pit limiter on for the 40k an hour pit speed limit.
Yeah, it's just the combination of a very long, slow pit lane and a really quick lap that it just means that, comparative times here, it's the longest pit lane, at least probably the longest pit lane for speed, also the longest pit lane for the lap relative in the Supercars calendar. And look, it'll be an interesting thing obviously later in the year. Calder is scheduled to make a return to real life racing. There'll be a state series around here, and there is some nationals going on here as well, and I'm not sure if the national racing involve a pit stop, but if they do, we'll see a bit of this IRL as well, where cars are doing probably, just over a minute lap times, with the pit stops taking, up to maybe a minute. So, yeah, if there's a pit stop option there, it'll be really interesting racing, because you'll have leaders, starting to fend with lap traffic for 2 or 3 laps while everyone shuffles out.
The undercut hasn't worked. Ryan Cox has not been able to make the undercut work. He's now still behind Noah Turra, but the lap tyre difference delta is not that great. Like, it's only a lap difference between the newer and the older rubber. So Noah Turra has a little bit better tyre life until the end of this race. But Cox was coming at him late in that stint, and he's got his tyres up to temperature now. So he needs to strike soon. He needs to try and close this margin down over the next sort of 60 to 90 seconds and be right on the rear boot lid of the Mustang and be in position to strike in the second half of this race. Brent Foley is the leader of this race for the time being. He's just ahead of Turmo by about 7 seconds. Foley in. So lap 23 is good enough for the Red Bull man. And what about Turmo? He goes around again. So Igmanis going around again. And that leaves just Igmanis and Higginson as the only 2 drivers yet to take service.
I feel like we're going to see Higginson in this lap based on the pace he was doing. He was trying his best to not interrupt the pace of all these other team drivers around him as he was coming into the lane.
Yep, well called. There he is in the lane. So it just leaves the number 51 CRE Mustang out in front as the sole driver yet to take service.
He's actually having a little bit of influence potentially, or he might have an influence later down the race, because the car he's currently racing, he's lapped everybody up to and including 9th. So he's not going to see impact the lead battle where he's sitting. But there's going to be a little bit of a shuffle out with all of that as well. Potentially some time gained or lost here from the drivers at this stage of the race that he's racing, with going to impact battles that we're not going to see for another 10 to 15 laps, and Turmo is now in.
Yes, Turmo's now in, and that will cycle the lead back around to Will Devenish when he gets to the control line this time around. So, Brent Foley drive-through penalty, caught speeding on pit lane. So that's the first penalty from a pit infringement that we have seen. Be interesting to see whether that was too fast entering or too fast exiting. I think it was probably going to be the latter.
Yeah,
sorry, the former.
Yeah,
sorry.
most likely too fast. And it's easy to be limited too early, but realistically, it's not worth it. The real gains are on the pit end, as we mentioned. So it's a shame for Foley running comfortably in the top 10. Back in the race pace. I mean, he'll have the same sort of race pace at the end of the drive-through, but again, we've talked about how long that drive-through is. The best chance for Foley at this point is, and I'm going to touch wood because I've cursed enough stuff this race, is that, where's my wood? There it is. That, I mentioned earlier that that the Dev Series waited until their last race of the evening to cause safety cars. There's still 16 laps worth of racing here, in which something could play out as well. And if that's sort of Foley's best chance to get back into the swing of things, he is still out there racing at the moment, but he will be in the pit lane in the next couple of laps.
He definitely will. He definitely will be in the pit lane now. I just saw something happen just behind there as well, with Lewis Wedding sort of veering at the pit. Was it Brendan Ross? Sorry, Brendan Ross veering at the pit entrance. I don't know what that was for, whether that was something about Turmo leaving the lane, or he wasn't definitely trying to shake off anybody behind, but that's sort of most unusual.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like...
Race lap record. Sorry, Rody. Yep. Race lap record has just been broken by Will Devenish, 55.927. That breaks his own mark of 56.061 that he set back in 2020. So, new race lap record for Calder Park for Will Devenish.
I feel like there was some pretty fair racing happening between Turmo and Lewis in that first stint. Definitely excitable racing, but I think it was all pretty fair. So I don't know. There might need to be some further investigations to what that was, whether it was simply just a hardware failure at a really inopportune time to make it look like it was more than it was, or something. But that was odd from Rossi. But no, really good lap now from Willie, starting to put the pressure in.
Oh, we've got a car off the road. We've got a car off the road. I think it's is it Phil Boak? I think it was. Yeah, Phil Boak was off the road at the final corner. There was a yellow flag out, so he's sunk like a stone. So the PBF stalwarts and founding fathers not having a very kind second race this evening. And he's going to get swallowed up here by Cheese as well, right around the outside. And Lockie Lock's a little bit too far away. But it's actually a lot earlier than I expected based on last race, where drivers are getting lapped. Like, we didn't see the back end of the field getting lapped until around lap 33, 34. we've actually had them lapped around lap 25, but there's been so many people that have looped and spun or been off the road through, their own self-pity, that they've just put themselves inevitably in a position of being lapped far too early.
I think the other thing that helps as well is the guys at the front have been running line astern for most of this race rather than trying to run 2x2 up onto Noah's Ark, which means they can run faster lap times as well, rather than trying to battle each other. Speaking of battles, I'll cut back to it again. It seems to be the battle of race 2. Lewis Wedding and Termo found each other yet again. Termo's just sort of putting a pass back on Lewis Wedding, but he's leaving the door open a bit here for a move perhaps from Wedding into the corner in the back straight, but he hasn't gone for a move here. Maybe he's going to set something up for a run out of the last corner.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, but it's a bit too far behind. We were just on board very briefly with Brett Foley at a very pedestrian 40 kilometres an hour on the speed limit, and he has gone to last place on the running order. How many times would we have called that over the last several years, Roddy? Brett Foley is a lap down and last.
Yeah, it's not a common one. I don't think it's ever happened, to be fair. Foley tends to be pretty consistent with his running. He tends to not pick up too many in-race penalties. It's either he does well, or he'll DNF from mechanical issues or something like that. Or in the early days of 2019, it was actually internet disconnects that got him. But look, I did say a little earlier with some of the guys.
Sorry, Roddy. A bit of an interesting moment there. I think it was a very awkward moment between the first and second place cars on the road. Liccardo was extremely close going across the line and had a little bit of a nibble at Will Devonish at the first turn and didn't come off, and he's actually given the position back. So
probably for the best looking at that on replay, because that wasn't the best.
No, here we go.
Pass.
So that's super awkward. Look, it wasn't Ethan malicious there. Danes escorted him off the road a bit by being a bit too deep, and he's done the right thing. He's given the position up. And on top of that, Dane actually just set a 55.935, so he has also gone under the old lap record of Will Devonish, but unfortunately for him, he hasn't quite wrestled that lap record away.
Yeah, so some decent pace running as we saw in the last race with the running on soft tyres, or new soft tyres with lowered fuel. I could finish the point from earlier is that CRE has been a bit, Calder's been a bit of a bogey track for PBF. Back when the tyre bundles existed for fast chicane in 2020, we had, I think, 3 of our cars DNF off of those tyre bundles. So Calder's a bogey track for us, it would seem. But good running from the guys in the lead, and actually there's a good little battle sort of threatening to form still between Noah Turra and Ryan Cox over the last spot on the podium.
Yeah, we're watching this one right now. They're getting very interested in the last spot on the rostrum. In fact, Noah Turra's not too far away from lapping his teammate in 18th place, who's had a dead set shocker for race number 2. And I think he's just looking to bring home some points. That's about the best thing he can do. But Cox is not making it easy for him in the same way that he wasn't making it easy for the race leaders. There's a massive lock-up, big smoke screen. I just noticed from unsurprisingly, it's Nathan Higginson. Sorry, mate. I was just keeping an eye on things and just seeing what was happening down at turn number 1. As I was on board sort of with Will Devonish, just keeping an eye on how he was progressing through the traffic. Here he is actually Will's on board as we head down towards turn 1. There's this big smoke screen. And, so Higginson defending from... Oh, there was some contact in there. Is that Burko? Yeah, it was. Higginson and Burko, I think.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, yeah, that was a definitely an oh dear moment.
But it's a shame for Higginson. He has had decent flashes of decent pace. We saw that in the run into the shootout. But it's sort of unravelled for him as the night's gone on, which is a bit of a shame. But still comfortable running. Actually line astern with his teammate again, which we saw at the start of the night. Ignoring that one of them's just on a lap down, the other one's not far off of it. Racing in 13th and 14th.
Here we go. Cox going to go around the outside. No, he's way too deep. He's off in the weeds. Where's he going? He is well out of commission here, and that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back for another podium finish for Ryan Cox here at round 1 at Calder Park. He was way too deep under brakes heading into turn number 1, and unfortunately for him, he has got a lot more work to do to get back to the rear bumper of Noah Tara. So Tara left him some space here. This was important, but Cox was on the dirty stuff, and I think he just left the braking ready here a little bit too late.
Yeah, just a little bit, and it's just you're just trying to knock the little sort of tenth, trying to knock a metre or two off of braking points and trying to get the acceleration point a little bit earlier, just trying to find those little micro tenths in improvement and trying to pass someone, especially, you know, when they're running at the pace they've both been running pretty consistent pace the entire race. It's very hard to find an easy edge over someone when you're running so close on pace. And yeah, just trying to get those little bits, and it looked like it was pretty good initially, but yeah, just a little late on the brakes. You can run a line from out there and get it into the corner, but yeah, as soon as you pinch a brake or get too late on the brakes, you've kind of already, your sentence is already kind of written for you there. And you know, it looks still going to be a comfortable run home into fourth at this stage. Still some good points for that car, but yeah, probably not the race 2 Ryan was looking for.
No, definitely not. And it's a little bit of a lonely race for him now to try and sort of get back to the back of Noah Tara. So yeah, probably hasn't got enough laps to really get it done. And then you've got Leonard Grossel in 5th place. He's trying to catch up to the back of Cox, and he'll have a bit more incentive now, although when you lock a whole bunch of brakes like that, it's not going to do yourself any favours. And then you get back to Cheese, who's actually had a, sorry, it's not Cheese, Ended Snipes has had a super race, and he's up into 6th place.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, just a really good little quiet run. You know, probably pace-wise, probably one of the better Kiwi. He is a Kiwi, but I'll say their team name. They've paid for it. One of the better Beyond Racing drivers. Going to get the sponsorship out there. One of the better Beyond Racing drivers on the grid tonight in terms of the pace and consistency, obviously helping as well. But yeah, pretty comfortable running. He's got 8 seconds between him and Grossel, and he's got a 2-second gap between him and Termo, and Termo's had some good pace as well, but Termo's probably chewed a bit of his tyre up in trying to eventually process actually both Pixel cars. I see he's got past Brennan Ross at some point there as well. But he might still have a bit of tyre life left, we don't know. We did see the CRE guys doing some funny stuff, and Termo did run later than everybody else before he pitted, so he might actually have tyre life to maybe put a challenge to Kane at the end of this race, and Kane's going to give him a helping hand there by running wide at the corner at the back straight.
Yeah, you're not wrong. He's run wide at turn 6 there. And I was about to say, I think Snipes is going to have to get his defensive act together and get a plan for when Termo inevitably gets to the rear bumper of him pretty soon. Because the margin's coming down. It was 1.7 seconds at the first sector split. Get across the line. This time it's 1.7 again. So Termo's gaining most of his time in sector 1, I think, through breaking through the first corner. So you can see here, it's about 1.7, 1.8 seconds. Heading down through here and up towards turn 2 and 3, and as they leave turn 3, that's where the first sector split comes into play right about now. There is, it's actually gone the other, it's come down, it's now down to 1.4, so there's plenty of time being gained through here. So I think, whoops, not like that, it's not. No. So that's a nasty swapper, but thankfully for Termo, he didn't lose too much time going across the grass there, but he's just had a really nice run through for most of those couple of laps, and then just threw it all away there, and that's cost him 0.6 of a second, so might be enough. Margins are so fine here. That's the important thing. The margins are so fine lap to lap to lap. You're not gaining much time. You're gaining maybe a 1/10 or a 2/10 here or there. You're not really gaining anything major to really make hard inroads. You've got to be at it lap after lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, even with that wobble through the fast chicane, Termo only lost less than a 1/10 on that last lap to Kane. So he's probably still going to get there, but he's probably narrowed his window to be able to get there and pass him. They are quite a lap down, yes, so they will get the full 40 laps worth of racing, of which we've got just over 4 laps left at this point. Yeah, I'm not sure if Termo's going to quite be able to get to him and pass him, assuming they both can keep it on the road, which, to be fair, we have noted that they aren't 100% on doing at this point of the race.
No, they're definitely not. There's not too many battles up and down the field at the moment. This is probably one of the more interesting ones. Steve Burko's grabbed another spot in his charge through the field. He's up to 14th now, having passed Nathan Higginson, and then Cheese is getting involved in the battle here as well. We've got the recovering Phil Boak off the back of this little group as well. So not much time left for Burko to grab another spot, and I think he's got a fair effort to catch up to the back of Bailey Hall, who I believe is around the corner and about halfway down the front straight. Yeah, well, actually more than that. He's 9.2 seconds up the road. So probably close to think. Oh, geez, in the back of shot into the fence. So he's done a Phil Boak, and he will come out of this little battle group. And on top of that, to make matters worse for this little battle group, they've got Noah Taro, third place man, coming through to put another lap on them as well.
Yeah, Taro coming through, and there's also a distant Ryan Cox in the background for that little battle pack as well. But yeah, so still some good little action going on here. Higginson's very much still sees an opportunity to get some points, especially over a CRE driver here with Burko right in front of him. And they've had some good battles over the years. They've sort of been similar pace bracket. Higginson maybe, Burko maybe on an average very a little comfortably quicker than Higo, but Higo's had, you know, some good moments where he's sort of picked it up into the window, and you know we saw it in qualifying, obviously, and the run in the shootout. But still having a good run. He might be able to actually take advantage here if he gets a good run off the corner. But more so, he might get an advantage off of when Noah Taro positions himself. Maybe Noah is able to get past in a way that affects Higginson less than it will affect Burko. Like a bit of a might open the door for him.
Like a bit of a surprise attack or something. Noah Taro opens the door and Higginson just follows him through.
Something like that, yes. Yeah. Oh, no, not like that though, Higo.
No, not like that.
Higo. Not like that.
Yeah, not like slideways action. We don't want to see any of that. It's actually not been too bad a race for some of the Beyond drivers as well. We've got Kane Gray and NZ Snipes up there in 6th place. Peter Thrower's on the door of the top 10 here, but he's just got a little bit too much work to do in too short a period of time to really threaten the top 10. So this is a strong showing in the second race for several drivers. Peter will be pretty happy with this, having started 13th and having started toward the back end of the group in race 1. He's progressed his way forward, so he's had a really good solid run. Then Daniel Cox, he started 15th. He started well outside the top 10 both occasions tonight. He actually is now found himself inside the top 10, and he's getting interested in the back of Lewis Wedding. I don't know if Wedding's got a little problem or if Cox has just had a really good lap somewhere along the line, but I don't know, maybe might just run out of laps here, I think, Daniel Cox.
Just looking through the battles, we've got a last lap battle that's actually been energised as a result of the lapping cars. Brapp and Bailey Hall were running pretty close together until Dane came through at a lap and actually pushed Bailey a little bit wide at turn 1 and lost him about half a second, which is what's given Bailey Brapp the chance to get through. But we are now on the last lap of the race. We probably need to cut to our winner.
He's kicked away ever since that little move from Dane Liccardo went wrong at turn number 1 after the pit stop sequence. Devonish has cleared away here and headlights are on. He will salute in the milestone race here. Race number 100 in ASR Supercars goes to Will Devonish, and to make matters even more interesting for Will Devonish, he will make his 100th race start next round as well. So couldn't quite tie the two together, but he does take a milestone event here in ASR Supercars, and he takes home maximum points for his night's work.
Very good, and we saw in the end the battle between Brapp and Brapp and Bailey Hall. Apologies, Bailey went the way of Brapp. But third place in the end for Noah Taro, so it's not the second verse, not quite the same as the first four. Yeah, not a repeat of the podium, which is a good bit of variety to see.
Papa Bear is going to be extremely happy to see his son up on the podium. He is a podium sitter on his debut round appearance as a full-time driver in ASR Supercars. So well done, Noah Taro. That's been a little while coming, and we suspected this was going to happen this year. We didn't expect it to be this early. Yeah,
fourth for Ryan Cox, so not a podium, but still getting a very strong showing. Maybe a Supercars debut, a Supercars registered debut is in his future a little sooner than he perceived, based off of tonight's performances. With Leonard Grossel in fifth, maybe another one that's looking at a Supercars drive full time at some point this year, based off how he's done tonight. Not quite as strong as Ryan Cox, but again, you know, I think two top 5 finishes in the end. Very strong run from Leonard Grossel, especially the recovery in the first race.
And Snipes held on. Importantly, he held on for 6th place, so that's a fantastic result for the Kiwi.
So yeah, Snipes home in 6th, the first of the Beyond drivers, with Termo in 7th. That'll be a good run for CRE in the team's points. 8th is Brendan Ross, the lead real Oldham Pixel Race team. I need to get a deeper voice for that. Coming home in 8th with his teammate behind him in 9th. They've run line of stern basically to the flag in both races, I think. And as we mentioned earlier, Daniel Cox taking home his first. Is his first top? Yeah, I think it is his first top 10.
It'd be very close. I'll
for
have
the
to go.
season.
I'll have to go back through the record books from if it's his first ever top 10.
Well,
I don't believe it
I
is.
meant
It's
sorry
first
for the year.
season.
First for the season as well.
First for the
he has
season.
got top 10s before, but he's first for the season.
Yeah, first for the season.
Which is a good run for himself in the points that him and Cam Rutledge are sharing. Quickly go through the rest. Pete Thrower in 11th for Beyond Racing. That'll help them out in the team's points with Tim not present. Brap, as we mentioned before, home for 12th in the end, just ahead of Bailey Hall. 14th is Steve Burko. Good recovery in the end from starting off the back of the grid. Nathan Higginson in 15th, managed to get the tyres somewhat underneath that car. But you can sort of see the Subaru inspiration with the way he was driving that car at the back end of the race, very much a rally-style approach to turn 1. 16th in the end is Lockie Lock, not the race he wanted, especially compared to how the other side of the garage performed. 17th is Phil Boak. Not a bad race for him, but obviously not as good as he went in race 1. Cheese home in 18th, where he started race 2. And Foley home in 19th after that drive-through for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, so the only penalty that sort of came of anything in the 2 races we had this evening was the penalty for Brenton Foley. So that was a pretty tame night, I think, by sort of everyone's standards. I was quite impressed, actually, throughout the night. I was quite impressed just with how everyone sort of conducted themselves. As I said earlier in the night, I think a lot of the emphasis this year has gone into just telling people to enjoy their racing. And I think it showed tonight, Rody. We had some good battles out front. You know, they didn't make it easy for the race leader, although I guess in the latter stages, it did kick away a little bit. But battles up and down the field, we're going to be in for a really interesting year as we get set for the Beyond Electrical podium presentations for the second time tonight.
Absolutely. I think we'll do a 2 for 2. Keeps the order somewhat similar. We'll start with the middle step of the podium yet again. Dane Liccardo, don't sound so unenthused for 2 podiums in your first 2 races. Obviously, still a little away from the race win, but you know, I think that's possibly your first podium tonight. Was your first podium run in a supercar at all, and then to double it up and go 2 for 2 on your first round. Pretty good start to the season.
Yeah, it was a great start to the season. You know, first fastest lap, first time leading a race, first time finishing on the podium. You know, I'm pretty happy with how it all went.
Yeah, you're just chasing sort of the little sort of 1%ers to try and match it with Will for the length of a race, but even just to be up there is a very good shout and sets you up pretty well for the season.
Yeah, it does. But as for the 1%ers, you know, still got to learn those. But you know, unfortunately, sometimes your ambition outweighs your ability, and I stuffed up and hit Will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, credit's due. You saw that obviously that wasn't an intended passing maneuver, and you redressed that. And you did it properly, and that's an important bit as well, is to recognise that you're not perfect. You make mistakes, but you can fix it on track. You don't have to wait for the steward's room to deal with it, and make it worse for you.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we'll talk quickly on the teams. I suppose for you guys, the team's focus isn't much of a focus necessarily, but good run for Burko in the second race as well to make it to the end.
Yeah, Burko had a really good run, and he kept it out of the grass and out of the fence, and really happy with how we all went.
Very good. Well, it sets you up well for the start of the season, and that was a good start for you, Dane. And we'll catch you in it's a few weeks' time until we go to Sydney Motorsports Park for round 2.
No.
You're not looking forward to that, Dane?
No, I don't like SMP.
Alrighty. Well, we'll see how you go. But
yeah.
But yeah, we'll catch you then, Dane.
Yeah, easy. All right, have a good one, fellas.
Alrighty, swinging across now to Noah Tara, who gets his first podium in a supercar season at least. You might have picked one up possibly in Enduro Cup from memory, but definitely your first as a solo driver. Pretty good run for you tonight, all up, Noah.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Made a few mistakes here and there, but it's pretty positive night in terms of overall pace.
Yeah, as we mentioned, top 5 running in the first race. Obviously, they got the slip and the run you needed in that second race. How are you finding yourself adjusting to the supercar, obviously coming out of a Dev Series run last year?
Yeah, it's a bit different, with emphasis on setup and all. bit more practice probably needed as well. But it's more of the same, just a tighter field. But it's about easily as competitive, at least the top end of Dev series. So it's not too much different, other than maybe the big gap to first.
I mean, decent run all up for the night for you and Lockie. Obviously, race 2 didn't quite go Lockie's way in the end there, but still a decent haul for the points. Sort of, you don't have to give away too much necessarily, but what's your thinking coming into this season? Obviously, your first year in the main game.
Well, give it a good red hot go and see what happens. Not expecting any major like championship runnings or anything, so just have fun. Just go for it and have fun. Try and do my best. See what happens.
That's a good approach to have. I suppose we got Dane's thoughts on it. What's your thoughts going into Sydney Motorsports Park?
I've never driven that layout before, so I have no real opinion on it, and I don't mind Sydney for the most part. So, not too fussed.
Alrighty. Well, good to see you up on the podium, Noah, and we'll probably catch you a few more times throughout the season. But great work in race 2 tonight.
Yep. Thanks, Rudy.
And we'll switch over now to 2 for 2. Pretty strong, probably the strongest start you can have to a season, to be fair. Qualifying on pole, going to the shootout and getting pole, and winning both races with by no means an unsurmountable margin, but a pretty healthy, pretty handy margin. Will Devonish, I don't think you can start a season much better.
No, and I'm really happy to be up here and getting the 2 races. I'm also happy that a bit fitting that I'm one of the longest running members of the group, and being the 100th race, being able to take it out. So that was my goal for tonight, and I'm happy I got that over the line. And it's also fitting that these younger guys are now getting podiums as well. They're well deserved, and yeah, I know some people had some average nights, but to me, it's been an absolute perfect night.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were talking about the night as a whole then with CRE. I've alluded already earlier talking with Dane about Burko, when I was talking with Noah about how Lockie went. But I think generally, as things went, your CRE drivers went pretty well for the night.
Yeah, look, we had 2 DNFs, Burko race 1 and Cam race 2, and it's a bit weird. These new cars seems to be that the engine's a bit more delicate than the engines of old, so something we'll have to work on in practice to make sure we don't keep popping them. I know myself and Dane, we were pretty gingerly going into turn 1 compared to what we were doing in practice to sort of hold it together.
All things up, yeah, very strong night. And what's your thoughts coming into round 2, around the Druitt layout of SMP?
Well, I don't want to be a downer. I'm not a big fan of SMP either, but I actually really like the Druitt layout, the big old flip-flop. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially with these cars. We've driven around there with the lighter cars, but with a 1.5 ton car doing the flip-flop, it's going to be mad fun, I think.
Absolutely. Well, great work in round 1 tonight. We'll obviously take out the 100th race, and next time out, you'll be starting your 100th race, and we'll catch you then.
Thank you.
Alrighty, that's been Podium Sitters for race 2.
Certainly has. Thank you very much, Rody. As always, you do a fantastic job grabbing these guys and getting them out of the cars and asking the right questions. I think that's probably the best thing I guess way I can summarise that is you ask the right questions. So a bit of a look ahead. You were talking just a few moments ago about Sydney Motorsport Park. So that is still a couple of weeks away now, with Easter being in the mix as well in about 2 weeks' time. For a lot of people here at ASR and that watch live, you sort of have got the idea now that we work on what we call a 3-week block. We have a development series, we have supercars, and then we have a week off, and then we repeat the cycle. So that way there's a bit of break time in between. Everybody sort of gets about 2 weeks off between having to start getting ready for the next round. So with the way that April sort of pans out, the development series race would have been scheduled to be on Good Friday, so we have actually pushed that back by an extra week. So that is now on the 14th of April. at Sydney Motorsport Park Druitt layout. And then the Supercars is actually going to move to be 2 weeks after that, not 1 week. There's unfortunately a collision happening on 21st of April where there's admins are not available. So Supercars round will be on April 28th. And then the cycle next starts after that. It'll go back to its usual cycle after that of a week off and then back into Development Series Supercars week off, etc., etc., blah, blah, blah. In between now and then, we have, of course, got the ASR Australian Formula One Grand Prix over this weekend. So if you are looking to have a bit of a drive and or you're looking to tune in and watch that broadcast, it's over on the Loose Sim Network channel. They'll be qualifying tomorrow, and I believe it's tomorrow, and then the race is on Sunday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, in the chat, please, because that's what I believe is happening without looking at what's written up in Discord. And then, of course, there is the GT3 series starts on April 22nd at Bathurst. So there's a little bit of that coming up. And then there is the first half of the social series, which kicks off on Wednesday, the 5th of April. So April's a busy month, Rhodey. Even though
Absolutely.
Easter's in the mix, April's a busy month.
Absolutely, yeah. We're taking advantage of some of the offs that the serious series, I suppose, are afforded to get some of the other stuff on the way. But do correction for the F1 for the Grand Prix this weekend. Everything is happening on Sunday, so practice starts at 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. Qualifying is a Sunday, and it's a 3-part qualifying session starting from 2 p.m.
Okay, cool. So there you go. Everything on Sunday. That's all you need to know. I had it a little bit wrong. So, yeah, tune in on Sunday for the broadcast there on the Loose Sim Network. And we will see you in about a month's time for the next round of Supercars. My thanks to Rhodey, to CRE Electrical and Beyond Electrical. Guys, we've had a fantastic opening to this year's 2023 Championship. We'll see you for round 2 at Sydney in about a month. Until next time, drive safe. Bye for now.